Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Daytona Beach City Commission. We're delighted to have each of you with us this evening. At this time, we would ask that Ms. LaMagna review the procedures for tonight's meeting.
Good evening. Agendas and all exhibits pertaining to items on the agenda are posted in the lobby. Persons may visit City Hall during public meeting to make public comments, subject to these city procedures and compliance with all recommendations from the CDC to minimize the spread of COVID-19. The Commission chambers will be closed for in-person attendance by the public. City Hall lobby will be equipped with a lectern and a microphone for public comment and an audio-video feed to the Commission chambers. Yellow forms will be provided for those who wish to make public comment before the City Commission on items on the agenda. Persons may enter the lobby to speak on an item before the City Commission when called upon for 2.5 minutes. The lobby will have a limited defined area with social distancing for people waiting to make public comment. In addition, the exterior entryway to City Hall will be equipped with a loudspeaker for persons waiting for permission to enter to make public comment due to space limitations in the lobby. The public may also monitor public meetings from their iPad, iPhone, or other electronic device on the city's website and enter City Hall for public comment at the appropriate times. All persons must comply with social distancing requirements while at City Hall, such as by remaining at least 6 feet apart. Use of facial masks is mandated to combat the spread of COVID-19. Item number 7 is your opportunity to address the City Commission concerning any item on the consent agenda. Please indicate on the yellow speaker sheet the agenda item number of the item or items that you are addressing. Items or discussions not listed on the consent agenda will not be heard during this comment section. Agenda items under item number 9 are public hearings, and citizens may speak at the designated time. And resolutions under item number 10 are open for public comment, and citizens may speak at the designated time. All citizens completing the yellow form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach a lectern, please speak clearly into the microphone and give your full name and address. The 2.5-minute clock on the monitor above the dais will start running when you begin to speak. Pay close attention to your time. You will be told when your time has expired. Item number 13 is the public comment form, and it will convene after the adjournment of the business meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to speak on any issue that is not on the business meeting agenda. All citizens completing the green form will be allowed to speak for 2.5 minutes. When you approach a lectern, please give your full name and address. Disorder the conduct in the public meeting of the City Commission. Article 2, Section 6238 of the City Code of Ordinances reads as follows. It shall be unlawful for any person to behave in a riotous or disorderly manner in any public meeting of the City Commission or any committee, agency, or board thereof, or to cause any unnecessary disturbances therein by force, shouting, or any other action that is calculated to disrupt such meeting, or to refuse to obey any ruling of the presiding officer or such meeting relative to the orderly process thereof. Please be courteous and respectful of the views of others. Personal attacks on the City Commission, city staff, or members of the public are not allowed. All conversation must take place either at the lectern or on the dais so that everyone can hear the business being discussed tonight.
All right, may we have a roll call?
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Traeger,
Here.
Commissioner Delgado,
Here.
Commissioner May,
Here.
Commissioner Cantu,
Here.
Commissioner Henry,
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry.
Here.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the December 16, 2020 regular City Commission meeting.
So move. Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Traeger, where the second from was Commissioner May. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now move on to our agenda approval. If we have any changes, our city manager will address them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have addition to the agenda tonight, item 101 at the end of administrative items. City Commission discussion of the city manager's hiring process.
10I. I'm sorry.
Is it 10I?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it's at 101.
Okay. All right.
Motion to move to approve the agenda with the said changes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Motion from Commissioner Reed, second from Commissioner Delgado. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay.
All right.
And before we move on to our consent agenda and the citizen comments, the mayor had a
Proclamation.
proclamation.
Is Representative, is Mr. Wild here? Could you allow Mr. Wild into the chambers? Mr. Wild? Well, go ahead. You have remarks? We'll be happy to have your remarks first.
Sure, thank you. First off, thank you all. Certainly next week's a big week for our city as the world's watching the Daytona 500 and understanding that it's going to be different this year. I've met with a number of you over the last, 4 or 5 months to talk about how we're going to continue to grow the Daytona 500 even in the pandemic. So just to really appreciate all of your support of all the things we're doing. We're getting an additional weekend following the 500, which is great. We'll welcome guests from all over the world here for 2 weekends. But just want you all to know how much I appreciate your continued support of all the things we're doing at the Speedway and for NASCAR.
Okay, well, I would like to kick things off with a proclamation, so I'm going to read it.
For sure, I didn't know.
I think it goes without stating how significant and how important the Daytona 500, NASCAR, Speedway, everything that's associated with what you all do at the track is to our community. So it gives me great privilege and pride to read this at it's a difficult time in our nation, and we need terribly some sense of normalcy. And for us, there's nothing in Daytona Beach probably more normal, with the exception of the beach, than racing. And those two go hand in hand. So the Daytona 500, in recognition of the Daytona 500, the great American race. The Daytona 500 at the World Center of Racing is one of the greatest events in all of sports. The 2.5-mile, 31-degree banked tri-oval has been a storied tradition since 1959. And whereas known for its pageantry and excitement of the great American race, a Daytona 500 win can be a career-making win as one driver becomes forever known as Daytona 500 champion. The biggest names in racing have had their name etched on the Harley J. Earl Perpetual Trophy. And whereas annually fans from 50 states and nearly 40 countries attend the Daytona 500 and millions more watch live around the globe, Daytona International Speedway is a state-of-the-art motorsports facility with premium amenities unmatched in the industry. And whereas the historic 63rd running of the Daytona 500 is the prestigious kickoff event to the NASCAR season, Denny Hamlin will go for a record third consecutive Daytona 500 triumph in 2021, while reigning 2020 NASCAR champion Chase Elliott will seek his first Daytona 500 victory. Following in his famous father's footsteps, Bill Elliott, a two-time Daytona 500 champion. And whereas the race will be broadcast live on Fox on Sunday, February 14th, preceded by a flyover of the world-renowned United Air Force Thunderbirds. Now, therefore, I, Derek L. Henry, Mayor of the City of Daytona Beach, Florida, do hereby proclaim Sunday, February 14th, 2021, Daytona 500, the great American race day in the city of Daytona Beach, Florida. Thank you, buddy. Bless you.
Okay. So moving on to item number 7, this is public comments for people addressing the city commission. These are for anyone that would like to speak on items on the consent agenda. Our first speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Doyle Lewis. John Nicholson is speaking on item 8A.
Doyle.
John Nicholson, 413 North Cranberry Avenue. Again, I'd like to reiterate, the county council and the school board both have opened up their audience to the public. And as cold as it is outside tonight, I wish you all had opened this audience to the public so they don't have to stand outside in the freezing cold. So please consider the residents of the city of Daytona Beach. Thank you.
Okay, and our next speaker is Doyle Lewis, speaking on item 8E.
What is 80? Yeah, be ready for Doyle.
Good evening, Commission. I'm here tonight to speak on 8B, Friends of the Band Shell. It's definitely a great thing. Always support it. Music is life. Without it, you have what? Most songs have a pause for a reason, and I believe in that pause because you have to have a little rest in between some little notes. So make sure that this keeps going on year after year after year after year like it has been since the band shell has been made. Because I support it, and without music, what do you have? Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was my final speaker for the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion from Commissioner Traeger, second from Commissioner May. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. So we'll move on to item number 9, which is our public hearings. Item number 9A is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Land Development Code Text Amendment, Furniture and Appliance Store Use. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the principal use tables located in Article 5, Section 5.2 of the Land Development Code, LDC, to add furniture and appliance store as a permitted use in the BR1, BR2, BA, M1, RDB2, RDB3, RDB5, RDD1, RDD2, RDD3, RDD4, RDD5, RDD7, RDM3, and RDM5 zoning districts, subject to use-specific standards, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner May.
I have no speakers for this item, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, no speakers. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to item number 9B, it's the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Project Sigma, Large Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance adopting comprehensive plan amendments in accordance with Chapter 163, Part 2, Florida statute, in relation to 118 plus or minus acres of property, the subject property, located on the west side of North Clyde Morris Boulevard and the northwest quadrant of LPJ Boulevard and Clyde Morris Boulevard intersection. Amending the future land use map designation of a 70.1 plus or minus acre section of the subject property from level 1 residential, office transition, and potentially environmentally sensitive to mixed use and potentially environmentally sensitive. Amending the future land use element, Neighborhood K, development policy to allow for residential and limited commercial developments of the subject property subject to conditions. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May.
And I do have Mr. Rob Merrill here on behalf of the applicant for any questions.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Merrill? Ms. Guile, no questions? Okay, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to item 9C. It is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Project Sigma PD, rezoning to Plan Development General, PDG. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 118 plus or minus acres of property generally located on the west side of North Clyde Morris Boulevard in the northwest quadrant of the LBJ Boulevard and Clyde Morris Boulevard intersection from RP Residential Professional and Volusia County R2 Urban Single Family Residential to PDG Plan Development General. Approving the Project Sigma Plan District Agreement, authorizing development of the property with a variety of residential, commercial, institutional, and light industrial uses, including compensatory storage, subject to conditions, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner May and a second from Commissioner Reed.
And I do have Mr. Merrill here on behalf of the applicant for any questions and no other speakers.
No questions for Mr. Merrill? Okay. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to item 9D, it's the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Project Theta, Large Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance adopting comprehensive plan amendments in accordance with Chapter 163, Part 2 Florida statutes, amending the future land use map designation of 37.1 plus or minus acres of land generally located in the southeast quadrant of the Williamson Boulevard and Strickland Range Road intersection from Level 1 residential, office transition, and potentially environmentally sensitive to mixed use and potentially environmentally sensitive. Amending the future land use element neighborhood K development policy to allow for residential and limited commercial development of the property subject to conditions. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May.
And I do have Mr. Merrill here on behalf of the applicant for questions only and no other speakers.
All right, no questions for Mr. Merrill. All those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to item 9E, it's the Development Administrative Services Planning Division, Project Theta PD, rezoning to Plan Development General. This is an ordinance on second reading, quasi-judicial hearing. An ordinance amending the zoning map of the Land Development Code to rezone 37.1 plus or minus acres of property generally located in the southeast quadrant of the Williamson Boulevard and Strickland Range Road intersection from Volusia County R2 Urban Single Family Residential to PDG Plan Development General, approving the Project Theta Plan District Agreement, authorizing development of the property with residential, commercial, and institutional uses, including compensatory storage, subject to conditions, authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the agreement, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner May. Is there a second from Commissioner Delgado?
Yes.
All right, all those in you got a
My
speaker?
only speaker is Mr. Merrill here for any questions.
No questions? Okay, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item 9F, it's the City Manager's Office, City Park Facility Renaming, Norma J. Bland Multipurpose Field. This is a resolution. A resolution naming the newly renovated multipurpose field at Derbyshire Park, Norma J. Bland Football and Soccer Field, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
You have, Commissioner, would you like to address this issue?
Yes.
Or Ms.
thank you.
Goodman?
Oh.
You're going first? Okay.
And I do have some.
Again, this agenda item is
Just so fast.
for approval to rename the newly renovated multipurpose field at Derbyshire Park to the Norman J. Bland Football and Soccer Field. And just a couple words for Commissioners. I think we all know how passionate Norma was about this city, especially the Derbyshire area in Zone 5. And all of us know that Norma never, ever missed the opportunity to let us know what she was saying. In fact, here she is right now addressing her police department. And she looks like Channel 9. And just to bring back a memory, when we first announced the Citizens Academy, Norma was the first person to call to say what a good idea it was. And guess what? Norma on the first row, in the first class, on the first day. And yes, we see you, Bishop.
Yeah, is that John Nicholson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it
I see Doug Hall.
So there are a lot of examples we could give you about Norma's contribution, and Commissioner Henry is going to speak. But if this action is approved tonight, we will plan something more formal. But before Commissioner Henry speaks, I would like to have her family stand. This is her son and her sister. So let's welcome them. She'll call you in a second. Okay, so Commissioner Henry?
Good afternoon, good evening. I am so excited to ask for your support in naming the football field, the Norma J. Bland Football and Soccer Field over in the newly renovated and beautiful Derbyshire Park. As Ms. Goodman said, we all know how passionate Norma J. Bland was about the city of Daytona Beach, but she also was extremely passionate about our youth. She wanted our youth to have everything that was good and perfect, and she let you know when the youth did not have everything that was good and perfect. And so, Ms. Bland, for some of you who may not know, and I find that hard to believe if you don't, she is a graduate of the great Bethune-Cookman University, where she earned her master's, and prior to her passing, she was working on her second master's degree. She was very passionate about food and feeding the community and making sure that everyone had something to eat. And prior to her passing, she made me promise that we were going to do a place for you to grow food, and a garden, yes, a community garden. And her family decided that they would rather have a actual facility or actual building named after her, and I think that's befitting as well. And I think she would be all right with the change in not making the food garden, but doing a field after her. She has numerous awards. She has served tirelessly on the NAACP Council. Just hours and hours of talking on the phone with her about things that happened in Daytona Beach and how Daytona Beach has progressed as she grew up in this city. And this is the whole package. She has numerous awards. She has numerous tireless efforts that she has given to the city of Daytona Beach. I cannot think of anything more befitting than to name this football and soccer field after someone who loved Daytona Beach and whom I loved very dearly and I miss very dearly. And so I'm asking for your support with this tonight. And I'm going to give her family the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, everyone. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the kind words that everyone spoke of my mother. I just got off the highway. I drove from Fort Bragg, retired military, 28 plus years. And I'm glad to be here, and coming here just from downstairs to in the lobby, everyone who knew who I was spoke highly of my mother. She passed away from COVID July 31st last year, too soon. And I had an opportunity to go through her personal belongings, and I saw her life. And it didn't just start at age 65, where between 65 and her passing, she earned several degrees, 2 being masters, 1 being a bachelor's, and 1's associate. But she had a lot of accolades and certificates from the state of Florida, NAACP, a lot of things from the community, a lot of letters of recognition that a lot of people don't know about. And she didn't brag because she knew who she was and she knew what she did for this community. Those who knew my mom didn't really know my mom, and she's been my mom for my entire life, but I didn't even know my mom. And I appreciate the consideration. I appreciate the kind words, and I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. This, a person dies twice in a lifetime, once when they take the last breath, and the other when the last person that knows them says their name. And by naming something after her, the next generation, the people that know her will be reminded of her, and the next generation will be curious of her, and they will Google her like she always says, Google me. So I appreciate it, folks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, before we take commission action, are there other speakers?
Yeah, I have two additional speakers, Mr. Mayor. Our first speaker is Cynthia Slater, and on deck is Ralph Walton.
That was Ralph. That's her son. Yeah. Ask Mr. Walton, Ralph, to come back in, please.
Oh, that was his name?
Yeah.
Walton, okay.
He's having a rough time. Might have left. Okay. You're free to go ahead, Ms. Slater.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and city commissioners, Mr. City Manager, and everyone that serves on the dais. My name is Cynthia Slater. I'm a lifetime resident of Daytona Beach, president of the NAACP here in Daytona. And I stand before you to support the Derbyshire Park being named after Norma Bland. Norma was a few years older than me. She grew up with my sisters, my older sisters. And as far as I can remember, probably when I was 8 or 9 years old, during that time in the mid-'60s, early to mid-'60s, your big sisters and brothers were your babysitters. And so I would have to follow them, my sisters, along with Norma Jo, when they were protesting and boycotting businesses and other areas in the community that didn't allow Black people, African Americans, to enter into their buildings and their stores and restaurants. So I was 8 or 9 years old at the time and didn't know what was going on, but I knew that whatever they were doing, I was having fun with it. But nevertheless, Norma Jo is, she was my friend. She became a member of the NAACP long before I even thought about joining the organization. When she was a teenager, she followed Mr. Charles Cherry. She left Daytona and came back to work in her city to make a change. I think it's befitting that Derbyshire Park be named after her because she was Miss Derbyshire. In fact, she was Miss Daytona. She would, if she saw wrong, she would try to right it, regardless of your age. She stood up to guys and young, old, male, female. She didn't care if you were wrong. She would take you to task on it. But at the same time, young people who she believed that she could make a difference. I'm done.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If she believed she could make a difference in their lives, she did that. And I think it's just befitting that Derbyshire Park be named after my friend, my colleague, and my civil rights leader, Norma Bland. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Slater. Okay, we're taking action, so we have to vote. Do we have to have a motion?
Oh, had a motion.
You have a motion from
just
Commissioner
Mr.
Traeger, I'm sorry, and a second from Commissioner Henry. You have another speaker?
No, Mr. Walton.
Walton, Ralph has already spoken. Before we vote, I will say this. You know, I was Norma Joe Bland's commissioner before I was her mayor, and she took deep pride in Zone 5. Every commissioner who represented Zone 5 knew Commissioner Bland. And they knew her, they were on speed dial. This was before me. This was back to Mayor Scarlett Golden. I dare not say that she worked with Mayor Scarlett Golden in the way she worked with the rest of us. The rest of us were her junior, but Mayor Scarlett Golden was nobody's junior. But Norma cared a great deal about Zone 5. And Derbyshire is the heartbeat of Zone 5. The park and these new fields being named in her honor, as Ralph alluded, really help enhance her posterity and her spirit. And Zone 5 will forever need her spirit. She's sort of like she was like the godmother of Zone 5. The chief, I know, misses her. But there's no one who worked with her. You know, you saw the picture. She was front and center at the police department. But it was that she cared about law and order, but she also cared about justice and right. She didn't want anybody to be mistreated, but she wanted everybody to do what they were supposed to do and do what was right. So on one hand, you would see her chastising young folks. On the other hand, you see her telling the police, yes, you have to apprehend this person or you have to do that. But then on the other hand, you see her in court speaking on behalf of some of the same people that had been arrested. So there was no dichotomy in her personality in terms of right versus wrong. She was always aspired to be on the side of right when it came to justice. But she, at the end of the day, she always came back with compassion. And the world needs both. And we will miss and do miss Ms. Bland. But I will conclude my remarks by saying this. Ralph, her son, and I are classmates. We graduated together. Many days I remember coming home from Mainland High School and giving him a lift and being in class with him. But I say this, all of the great things that she did for our community. Ralph, the man that you've become and the way that you've conducted your life and taken care of your family and served this country, you, my friend, are her crowning joy. And I am grateful to know you and grateful that her legacy will live on with you. And I urge my colleagues to join Commissioner Henry and support this motion that we might honor her as we rightfully should. And there are other remarks?
Mr. Mayor, it was my pleasure to meet with Norma on many occasions about many, many things, and always she cares about people. That was her primary thing, and I can remember one year, one Thanksgiving, she said, we got to have some turkeys. And I said, well, how many turkeys do you need? And he said, a dozen or so. Then about an hour later, she said, we're going to need about 25. So we got all the turkeys together. I said, now, how are you going to do this? And she said, well, we've got, our people that she associated with had gotten together, and they were going to cook all the turkeys and make sure those who didn't have Thanksgiving meal had turkey to eat anyhow. But that was the kind of person that she was, and I mean, I've talked to Norma over the 16 years many, many times and many hours, and she's always the same person, very gracious, always caring of other people, and she will be remembered by a lot of people for all those things.
I think this is such a fitting tribute to Norma Bland because from years late on, going on, the children will learn of her name, learn of her deeds, and she'll be an inspiration to them too, who are just growing up now and do not know her as we did. She was a wonderful person.
Okay. Okay, with that said, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. This motion carries 7-0. Let the spirit of Norma Bland abide in Zone 5 and all over Daytona Beach. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, will there be a public dedication or anything like that?
Yeah, Ms. Goodman alluded to that at the appropriate time. We will definitely do that.
Okay, moving on to item number 10, which is our administrative items. Item number 10A is the Utilities Department, amendments to Chapter 98 Code of Ordinances. This is an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance amending Chapter 98 City Code relating to utilities in general, rates and charges, stormwater utility, reuse in raw water, and cross-connection control, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have speakers?
I have Mr. Ryan Smith here on behalf of the consultant for any questions.
I'd like I have concern
Shan-
about,
Oh, Shannon's gonna come up and then we'll
okay,
let her go and then you can ask questions.
okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Shannon Palmer, Utilities Director.
Use the mic.
Ask questions, or do you want me to summarize?
Shannon, microphone, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I think I want to hear the summary because most of what I understand of it is excellent stuff.
Okay.
But, and then we'll go to questions, yes.
Okay, so I'm here on item 10A and 10B, and they are both pertaining to changes to Chapter 98, which is our utilities chapter in our Code of Ordinances. And both of these ordinances were developed as a result of recommendations in a comprehensive utility rate study that was prepared by Raf Tellis, our financial consultant, and it's dated January of this year. Ryan Smith is here for questions if it's something that I'm not able to answer. So basically, item 10A, it removes redundancies and it makes revisions in Chapter 98 to reflect current Utilities Department administrative practices and Finance Department's billing practices. In the memo, I highlighted the 4 main revisions that I felt like were important. Some of them were just housekeeping changes that we made because over the years, processes change. But the first thing is we're going to be establishing the date for future annual adjustments to rates, charges, and fees. So at the next meeting, we will be bringing forward a resolution for your consideration of the rate recommendations that are in the study. So this item actually says that the next annual adjustment by the Consumer Price Index will not occur until October 1st of 2022. The other things that this item does is it establishes a once-in-a-lifetime water and sewer bill abatement for large leaks on the customer's side of the meter. So this is for if you have a catastrophic leak at your home and you have a large water and sewer bill, they will look back at your average bills and they will only charge you for that for a normal bill so that you don't have to pay the large amount. This is a typical policy that a lot of municipalities have. So that's new. The other thing is we're establishing wholesale water, wastewater, and reuse rates for other utilities that may enter into a wholesale agreement with the city. Currently, we only have one wholesale user, and that's the city of South Daytona. And then lastly, it provides for refunds of the deposits to single-family residential account holders to be refunded after 24 consecutive months of timely payments. The rest of the items that are changing in the ordinance are the housekeeping items. So if you have any specific questions about any of the text, I'm happy to answer those.
Commissioner Traeger?
Well, I had a concern with section 98-33.
Okay.
The once-in-a-lifetime water and sewer bill abatement to any account holder and any occupant at the time of the event at a given address for a leak on the customer's side of the water meter. First of all, we have some residents who are part-time residents who are here maybe during the winter but not during the summer. They would not know if a leak had happened while they were gone. Also, it says on an account holder, that would kind of make a person who owns their home and maybe has a leak, maybe more than once in a lifetime owning that home, more or less second class to those who maybe rent the home just a little bit or, you know, for just a year or so, and then maybe somebody else the next year. Well, if the first person would take that lifetime abatement, maybe the second person would not, and I don't consider that fair either. So I have a problem with that section. I do not believe, I think it should be, as I know now, if you have a leak, and it naturally, your leak does not go down the sewer, that they abate a portion of your sewer bill. That, I think, is the most fair way to do it.
So,
We still do that. That will
would
still be in.
with this one?
Yes, this
Well,
is
it
in
doesn't-
addition to that.
It doesn't say it. It just,
Well, the language that didn't change is not like, it's the same as it was before. It's the underlined text that's changing. So like if you fill your swimming pool and the water's not going into the sewer system, you can request a sewer abatement, and you can do that once every 12 months. Or if, say, you put in new sod in your yard and you want to establish it and you need to water it a lot right at first, that water doesn't go into your sewer, into the sewer system, so you can ask for an abatement for that as well. So it's that is not going to change.
well, some of our older homes do have a pipe that would maybe give way. Would that mean only a once in a lifetime for that sewer abatement?
The way it's written, that is correct. However, if you really have a catastrophic leak, say like under your foundation, and you have damage resulting from that, you would also be able to have your home insurance. That might be something that you would take through your insurance company as well.
The sewer abatement is still available.
But the sewer yes, the sewer abatement is always available once every 12 months. You can do it every 12 months. One
I
time.
was not aware that they gave abatement on a leak that might occur
not a
on the
leak.
water.
A water leak is what she's talking about, is what would be.
But they're still having the sewer abatement
Yes.
Yes,
every 12 months.
Yes.
yes, that
I
doesn't change.
wish it had stated that. It would have been made clear.
Okay, I apologize.
so I have a question also.
Okay.
With regard to 98.33, I want to be clear in saying I misread it. The once in a lifetime refers to the account holder who travels, or does it refer to the address and stays with the address?
It's both. It's the account holder and the address.
So if you have an issue at your home once every 12 months and you're living here, that's fine. It stays the address. But if I move and I move somewhere else and I have equally terrible conditions or whatever happens, rainfall happens, I can have it again somewhere else?
Yes,
Okay, every 12 months, yeah?
just for the sewer. Now, the one time, the lifetime is water and sewer, and it's really there for a catastrophic leak. My mom had this recently where she had the sod put in and she needed to establish it, and she had a very large water and sewer bill. And she ended up, she's in a different town, but she ended up taking just the sewer abatement because she didn't want to take that one-time, lifetime water and sewer abatement because it wasn't catastrophic. It wasn't like you have a leak under your house and it's just thousands of gallons that you didn't know were, you didn't even know that it was leaking. So it's meant to be kind of a safety net for a really, really bad situation.
I think the abatement, the catastrophic abatement is per property,
Per property?
for the property.
It's for the property.
But if they go to another property, they would be eligible. If they had a failure there, they would also be eligible for it.
But what if you sold that house that had taken that lifetime water thing and somebody else bought it and they had another catastrophic thing? Would they be eligible for the once-in-a-lifetime deal also?
Let me just read it. Let me
If it
make
just
sure
goes
that we're
with the
saying it.
property, or
Okay.
That was my question, whether it's the person, the property, or both.
To any account holder at a given address for the duration of the customer's account with the utility.
okay.
So if you got a new account, then that.
Yeah.
Wherever you move, yeah, you get it one time.
I didn't even know.
The abatement, the sewer abatement's available.
One
I didn't know we
Correct.
did the sewer abatement. I need that. I had that.
Need it when you fill up your pool, right?
Why my water line broke to the dock and it was just dumping water into the dock and I had no idea until I got a notice that you've used 20,000 gallons. And
Oh, God,
I hope you paid it.
I think I talked to you about that. I said,
I don't remember.
yeah, I asked how I figured out. Well, yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea that happened. So, I'm sure the city would work with people though on a case by case basis too, and in spite of there being I can't imagine we're not going to take a look at anyone's situation. But my understanding, Ruth, was if I sold my house and I moved to a new location and something happened, I could benefit from that again as long as I establish a new account. I
But
don't
what
know if I
about the
transfer
person-
my account.
What about the person that bought your house? Would they?
They would
still-
be getting a new account, I think, at that address.
So
so-
it doesn't go exactly
Yes.
with the property.
Yeah,
It goes also with the account,
right.
not just the properties. See, that's where it's kind of ambiguous. It doesn't exactly say it.
Let me just say this, there has to be
Mike.
some flexibility in this language so that the manager or the utility director can use discretion in looking at those individual problems. Because nobody can anticipate everything, and if it's always absolute, then you take away that flexibility. So I'm gonna want the city attorney to modify whatever we got proposed now to give that flexibility in the ordinance.
You want it?
I have one more question.
Okay.
It's 98.99. The concept of the 24 consecutive months. So I've rented before, and let's say I rent for 12 months in one location, 12 months in another location. I would have to change accounts, right? New location, or does it stay the same?
I'm going to turn this over to Patricia Bliss because she's in charge of the billing, so I don't want to misspeak. So
Sure.
let me make sure.
And I just want to preface this with, I appreciate us looking at this because a few months ago we brought this up. We're getting some issues of residents talking about utility rates and deposits, et cetera. So I'm glad we're addressing it. So, Ms. Bliss?
Patricia Bliss, I'm the finance director or chief financial officer. And yes, Commissioner, it's 24 months. If you have a deposit, you've rented for 12 months, you move to another location, you usually transfer your deposit to your new location. If you, again, for 12 months now, you've had prompt payment and now you've moved to a third location, if you had prompt payment on those first 24 consecutive months, then yes, you would not have to have a new deposit when you moved again.
Okay. And so if I'm at one place for 12 months and I move, and the first 12 months, if we're saying the same thing, I'm on time, I move to a new location, and I have another 12 months, that's you consider
Yes,
that 12 months.
that's-
What if there's any breaks? I go live with a family member for a few months, and then I start up again.
And this
We really only have it in your name, so it's going to be whatever name is in, that you've paid your bill. I mean, it's just the way the billing system works, is that it's going to have 24 consecutive months. in your one name.
Yeah. Has to be then.
Consecutive.
So I have to live somewhere for 24 months. I have a continuous residence for 24 months.
Yes.
So in this day and age, I will say that I'm unsure if some young people can actually accommodate that. I can see them being on time for 12 months. I can see them renewing a lease maybe. I can see them having to go live with their moms, their grandparents because of some difficult situations that arise in the family. And then I can see them breaking it. And then they have to start up again, fresh 24.
No.
Correct?
No, if we have a record of their establishment of the credit at one location, and we have a record of it, they get credit for that, even if
Yeah.
they move to another.
At 12.
But they would, when they would reopen their account, they would need to tell us about where they've lived before in Daytona Beach, because it won't be automatic. We wouldn't know just from their application.
Okay, and so when I look at this, I read 24 consecutive months. I think of it as break in service, right? And so 24 months means I have to live somewhere for 24 months. Whether it's one house or the next, but it's got to be 20. But if I take a little break in between, then no. Even though my first 12 months, I was totally on time, went out of country for a while, came back, and then reapplied to live somewhere, I would then have to pay that utility again. I couldn't just reset the clock and say, okay, the start of my next 12 months begins. Could I do that?
Again, as long as they let us know for us to look at the history that they've been here and have been at, and had prompt payment before.
Okay.
But it's going to be one of those that if they suddenly had an issue where they fall behind, that would restart the clock.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
The answer to her question is yes.
Let's talk about restarting the clock. Could you just talk about that for a second? See, if I break service, or if I'm late, let's say I'm late in payments a couple of times, all right, fine. So then once that starts, that late payment cycle begins, I clean it up again, but then the 24-hour month begins again, or the 24-hour
correct.
consecutive.
That's right.
That's correct.
Pat, I had a question regarding that same Section 89 or 9889 yesterday, and I don't know if the manager or the attorney can answer it, but when are we going to start this 24-hour clock? Because you've got those of us who've had a water bill forever who've been paying on time. So is there a start date for this?
Well, right now, the ordinance is to be effective October 1st. I have not had a chance to talk to the city manager on how quickly we want the various sections to be started.
Okay.
So I think the question is, if a person has already paid 24 months retroactively, would you just give them their, excuse me, my light went off. The question is that will we retroactively apply it to people like Commissioner Reed who've paid on time? for
That is
24
the intent to do that. We just need to make billing changes in order to get this up and running, so I don't want to say
Yeah,
the day that this gets approved, it's not going to be next
Yeah.
month that we're going to get all of the refunds.
Well, that was my question, but I don't think we should do that. I think there'll be a lot of people that be coming here asking for their refund. I just wanted to know, let people know that there's a start date and we're not going back and retroacting. All of us will be a part of that start date moving forward. We just don't know that start date tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
And then in what Commissioner May was asking about, if someone closes their account or ends an account, don't they get some of their deposit back anyway?
They get their deposit
So they
back.
get their money back. If they close it, then they just have to start over, and then they have 2 years again. Yeah, they don't lose their deposit unless there's some money got to come out of to pay the bill. But, you know, they get the deposit, so they don't just lose it.
Yes, that is correct.
okay, let me ask you all this. Beginning the fiscal year, October 1, 2022, so the water bill will not change between now, we won't have an increase between now and October 1, 2022, based on
20
Section 98.32. Is that
On
accurate?
February 17th, we will be bringing a resolution that will have new rates. Those new rates will be the rates that will be in effect October 1st, 2021. We will not be increasing the rates
Nothing. not-
until CPI until October 1st, 2022.
So we won't have an increase?
So we will have published rates in February of what the rates will be on October 1st, 2021.
let me ask you this, is the CPI typically less than the rate that we've been increasing?
No, we have been increasing by CPI all these years.
Oh, we have?
Yes, and so it's, I did believe this last time we used 2.9%.
Okay, so we will continue to use CPI.
Yes.
Well, because one of the reasons I asked that is obviously I had a resident recently to ask me why we raised their water bill by 2.9% during COVID. And I knew that we had this ordinance in place to normally raise the bill, but I also thought, well, she's right. We should have thought about that, and we should think about it for the next cycle, even if we don't go back. If we go with this cycle, then maybe next year, we should think about holding it for a year or something to give the residents, you know, a reprieve from an increase if we could afford it. But at any rate, I understood what the consumer said. Okay.
Did I miss?
Well, that's even better.
Did I miss the discussion there? I mean, what do we do at large, like condos and things like that? Was there any discussion that I couldn't find anything in the supporting documents about, does this affect like a condo or an apartment complex where maybe the people don't have a separate metered water bill? Does the condo association get to make that call on a catastrophic loss? Does stuff like that still apply to them?
That would, yes, apply to them as well.
To the condo association as a whole?
Yes.
Okay, so they would elect when and how to use that based on whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the biggest complaints we have is how much our deposit costs. Our deposit currently is like $320 some odd to turn water on, and that's, woo, Jesus. That's a little expensive to me.
All right, that's
Yeah.
just your initial.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we have any other questions? Thank you. Thank you all for a thorough explanation. And this is excellent, and I'm very happy with this personally. Okay.
Call tomorrow.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. And the date that we'll have what's the date for the
17th.
updated?
February.
The public hearing is
February-
set for February 17th.
Okay, great.
Okay, moving on now to item 10B. It's the Utilities Department ordinance creating Article 7, Capital Facilities Fees, Chapter 98 City Code. This is an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance creating Article 7, Public Utility Capital Facility Fees of Chapter 98 City Code to establish revised water and wastewater capital facilities fees, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner Reed. Do we have any questions or comments?
Please. So, and I brought this up earlier in my meeting. I just wanted a little clarification on it. So somebody comes in, and we are, of course, encouraging people to build and help with infrastructure and do infill housing and whatnot. So what happens in the case that somebody comes in, they tear down a house and build a new house? What is their impact fee going to be?
So if you already had a house there, you get credit for that. So if you're not adding any more dwelling units, you wouldn't owe any impact fees.
Proof do you have to give for that?
A lot of times, well, they get a demolition permit through our building department, so the building department would know that there was a home there. If it's way back, sometimes we use old aerial photography. If they have any kind of old plans of the house, the survey or anything like that. I know the building department has worked with people in years past to prove that the structure was there.
Okay. And then the case that comes to mind is a piece of land where there was no longer a structure, but there was there was a structure there prior, but they couldn't locate it, or the plans were not sufficient. So what do you do when that's the case? You know there was a house there before, and then it was demolished, and now it's just land, but
If there's any proof at all, like the property appraiser's website, any kind of history on that property, we would take that into account, and they would get credit for that.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Okay, we have,
I actually have one more question. How did we arrive at that rate? Because I guess what intrigues me is the idea that, again, we're trying to incentivize people to do infill housing. So my question would be, how did we arrive at those increases? Because there is not a substantial increase, but if I'm trying to do something in a particular area, this will impact me. So how do we come up with those rates?
Okay, so with the rate study, the way the impact fees are calculated, we have to take into account all of the needs for the growth, all of the infrastructure needs, all of the operating expenses that the city has, all of the debt service that we have currently and that we see coming in the future from the infrastructure. And they're looking at a 5-year period for the capital improvements, and they calculate, and our rate consultant can give you a lot more detail about this than I can, but they calculate it, and it's based off of, you're basically reserving capacity in the system. There's a cost to serve every customer. And a single-family home is estimated at 250 gallons per day for water and sewer. All the other uses are either higher or lower than that, depending, like a multifamily unit is typically, they use less water and sewer than a single family, so you only get 0.8 of an ERC, which is an equivalent residential connection, which is what we consider a single-family house. Now, if you look at a commercial business that has a 6-inch potable water meter, that's a whole different animal. There's a lot of flow that goes to that meter, and the city has to provide, we have to have the demand capability to provide that flow to that customer. So they're buying capacity in our system when they develop. It's so in the commercial, we're doing it by meter size. For any residential use, it's going to be per unit, per dwelling unit, and then there's the ERC factor, and it's all based on that single one ERC. So there's a chart in the ordinance that kind of shows the breakdown, and it really makes sense once you look at it. But so, like I said, like a hotel that has kitchen facilities will be 0.75 of an ERC. But if you don't have kitchen facilities, it's 0.5. So that's lower. But once you get to the commercial, if you have a 3/4-inch water meter, which is the smallest water meter we sell, and it's typical of a single-family house, you're going to have the exact same impact fee as a single-family house. But if you jump up to, say, a 2-inch water meter, then your ERC factor is 5.33. So you're going to be paying 5.33 times higher than a single-family house. So that's how the fees are calculated. And there's a bunch of calculations that go into it, but that's basically how it's done. And just as a comparison, can you go to the next? Thank you. The next one. There you go. Okay, so this chart shows our existing, Daytona Beach's existing impact fees were very low. And these are a comparison of other municipalities, local municipalities. So with the proposed rate change, we're still slightly below the average. And I will point out that the city of Daytona Beach has a very old system. And we also have 2 wastewater treatment plants. Most places, a lot of them only have 1. So we do have a lot of needs, and so that's kind of taken into account.
Many people believe that our impact fees are really high. And so I appreciate seeing the comparison between the different cities and kind of the evidence for that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, and I know it was in the agenda item. There's a study there's a whole rate study that is included in the agenda item. So if anyone.
They have a chart in there is what she's going to say.
Yeah, and that chart came right out of the study, but I can definitely get these charts for you guys. There's an executive summary in that rate study that if you don't feel like falling asleep and reading all of it, you can
You
get.
pull it out, we'll give it to them.
Yeah,
And if this isn't a PowerPoint, I can get it from IT and send it directly to the commission.
okay. And I can do a more in-depth presentation at the second reading if you'd like, and we can add more information and give you any of the PowerPoints.
I actually appreciated your expertise in the subject matter, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
okay. we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote on it, and then I'll make my quick comment about this, something similar. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. I would also like, while we're on this topic, to have a presentation on the infrastructure improvements that we made as a part of the Brown and Brown project. And the reason that I'm asking for that is because there is a great misnomer in the community where a lot of people feel as though we gave Brown and Brown $4 million for a project to come here. Just gave them $4 million. And they don't understand how important those infrastructure improvements were, because they misunderstand how old and aged the infrastructure on Beach Street is. Just like the infrastructure on Orange Avenue was 100 years old, some of the under dwellings and pipes are 100 years old or more, and it's difficult. And so when we went in, my understanding is, we learned a lot about that, and it was difficult. But the main thing is that we have to understand is that we couldn't support that building. And that's why the infrastructure was done. But I would like for folks to know and see why that had to be done, and then also to illustrate why it's important to do infrastructure projects like that, because now we have better capacity for future development. But it's sometimes we just go through the business of taking care of city business, and then we allow the public to be sort of ignorant to the realities of why it's a necessity to do certain things. And then they, beat those of us up who are elected because they assume that you gave a guy who they think who owes the city something, something that we would have given to another business if they had moved here. And we have to remember that. But I do think it's important that we take our time and do a little bit of a job educating the public on that.
Take a little time, because we're still doing that.
And we're still doing that? That's good. Still working on that?
Still working on it.
Yeah, okay. I appreciate that. Okay.
And for the record, the public hearing is set for February 17th.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on to item 10C. It is the Development and Administrative Services Planning Division, Tomoka Independent Living PD Extension Request. It's a resolution extending the permitting and project completion deadlines for the Tomoka Independent Living Plan District project in light of the negative economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Delgado and a second from Commissioner May.
I do have Mr. Zachary, I believe it's Stonebus, here on behalf of the applicant for any questions, and then I do have one additional speaker.
Is this their first extension?
Come on up.
Okay, you come up.
If anybody has a question.
You hear the question?
I think
Okay.
I have a question.
The question was, is this the first extension requested?
You can come to the microphone.
Okay.
Yes, pretty much it is, yes. We had come in with an extension first. We had to ask for the 1 year, and then we were not able to ask for this period of time in the first request. So they told us you got to come in for this one. So it is pretty much, in our estimation, a first request.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis Merzer, Planning Director. The first request is actually a minor modification, which is an administrative approval by staff. So we were able to offer the 12-month extension. The applicant has indicated that because of some of the issues with COVID and financing for some of the senior housing, that it may take a little bit longer to be able to get the project moving along. So they say we're looking forward to another 2 years on top of that.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, do we have any other questions? We have a motion, we have a second.
I do have one additional speaker, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Doyle Lewis.
Doyle? You still here, Doyle?
Something smells like oranges.
Yes, my name is Doyle Lewis, Daytona Beach, United States. Mr. Mayor, I'll definitely always be here.
Oranges.
I'm looking forward to that.
Good, good.
I think this request should be granted under the conditions that has happened with the COVID-19 global situation, with all banking situations. The elderly in the area of the Volusia County, Central Florida area, I think needs this. I think more people should have the nerve to come up here to make sure that this happens and ask requests for this before anything else goes wrong with the building inspections, so they can do the right thing for the elderly in the area, because this is a retirement state. I'm very strong with this because I support my neighborhoods and my elderly more than I support most anything else. This should be granted without any argument, because without building, you have young people going to be homeless. You need to take care of our elderly and do it correctly. Thank you. Doyle Lewis, United States.
And that was my only speaker, Mr. Mayor.
All righty.
Could I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So we know that I think development is important, but I have a question for you. How far are we into this exactly, into the construction phase? How far into it are we?
The project has not begun yet.
Okay, so in this particular area, we're requesting a 12-month extension or a 2-year extension? I missed that part.
Yeah, the 12-month extension, the original project, the development agreement would have expired, I believe it was in October of this past October. All PDs have the opportunity to request an administrative extension of 12 months. They've done that. Now they're looking at a couple more years down the line. And to do that, we did change our land development code to allow the city commission through a resolution process to request additional extensions. That's the request right now, is the additional extension of those 2 years.
Okay, so I just have to speak my mind. New to the commission, but not new to Beach Street. Just in general, I noticed a trend, and I've discussed this with Mr. Jagger, and there's nothing we can do about it. People start projects, they don't finish the projects. They get extensions, the extensions go on and on. In the meantime, the rest of the community is in service to the will of the people who are under construction. I see this evidence, and it's not your fault, sir, but we have other issues in Daytona Beach. This is not your fault, right? I see what happens down on A1A. I see other projects in other cities experiencing this. People start, they don't finish. And the impact on the community is huge. So my question is, apart from it being a statement, is what do we have? I would like to know for myself, what do we have that says at the end of this amount of time, the extension does not in fact go on for another X amount of time? Do we have anything that says this can only go on for a certain period, or this could go on indefinitely? How is it written now?
Well, as far as starting the project, it would be up to the city commission if they wanted to approve the extensions. If they came forward and the city commission elected not to approve the extension, they wouldn't be allowed to start, and the project wouldn't happen. So there'd be no project at that point. Once a project starts, there are requirements that a project, at least they're built into the PD agreement, that a project should be substantially complete within a certain amount of time. So you'll see these projects, so they keep a timely manner.
What happens if they're not? So do we have any, if we've built in, we can do this, do we have another built in that says if you're not meeting your deadlines, that we are not held hostage to certain things? Do we have anything like that?
Well, there is no deposit, that would be refunded if something didn't get completed. It's in most cases, in nearly every case, the projects, once they start, they want to be completed because that's where they're going to be making their money. They're, selling the commercial real estate or the residential real estate, so they want to get that project completed. So they have incentives to complete those projects. So, there is one case where we do have a building that's been taking quite a while to complete, and they have been extending that. And I know the light is at the end of the tunnel. It might be hard to believe, but that light is at the end of the tunnel, and they will be complete eventually on that one project on A1A.
Wouldn't you say that's an abnormal, an aberration from the norm
Absolutely.
and this misnomer that, that's the only hangup that I can think of in this city where someone has began something and they didn't substantially complete in a reasonable time?
Correct.
I've been
That's-
up here.
So the
for me-
reason I bring this
yeah.
up is because the case that most people want to start a business and complete a business and continue opening the business may not in fact be true. And I'm going to cite to that Beach Street, number of businesses down there are ready to go. They're not opening by choice. They're just not opening, right? So not all businesses actually are ready to go and want to open. They are ready, but nothing's happening. So I just want to be sure that we have something, that I know of something, that it's not just extension, you don't have to open. And I've had this conversation with the city attorney where there's nothing that we can do to make someone open, actually.
Well, there's the development project to be complete once they get their CO and they're complete with the project, and then a business moving in is a little bit of a different item. But, with the current COVID situation, I think we do have some people who are a little hesitant to open up a new business with the current climate. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for them. All right, thank you.
Do we have any other questions or comments? We have a motion
And I have no other.
and a second. No other speakers? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Mayor, on this item, just for point of clarification, the backup on this included a resolution which was mistitled, or it included an ordinance, and that was mistitled. So we will retitle that resolution for your signature.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 10D. It's the City Manager's Office Board of Adjustment appointments. It's a resolution. A resolution appointing 4 members to the Board of Adjustment for 3-year terms expiring December 31st, 2023, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to present.
Good evening again. This agenda item is to appoint 4 members to the Board of Adjustment. The membership terms for Trey Harshaw, Zone 1, Maya Bowler, Zone 3, Patrick Connors, Zone 4, and Charlene Bahu, Zone 5, have expired, and all 4 individuals would like to be reappointed. Commissioner Traeger?
I would like to appoint Trey Harshaw.
Okay, Commissioner May? Commissioner Cantu?
Patrick Connors.
And Commissioner Henry?
Charlene Barhu.
Okay. In summary, our nominations are Trey Barhu, Maya Bowler, Patrick Connors, and Charlene Barhu. May we have a motion?
I so move.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Traeger and a second from Commissioner May. All those in favor of the slate, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Item 10E, which is City Manager's Office Peabody Advisory Board Appointment Resolution. A resolution appointing 1 member to the Peabody Auditorium Advisory Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2024, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to present.
This agenda item is to appoint 1 member to the Peabody Advisory Board for Zone 5. There is 1 application, and that is from Malcolm Williams. Commissioner Henry?
You need a second?
Can we get a
on it?
second?
Second.
Gotta have a second. All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Henry and a second from Commissioner Traeger.
Yes.
All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Item 10F is City Manager's Office Downtown Redevelopment Board appointment resolution. A resolution appointing one member to serve on the Downtown Redevelopment Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2022, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to report.
Okay. Okay. Could you help me pass these out, please? This agenda item is to appoint one member to the Downtown Redevelopment Board. The membership term of Daniel Harshaw has expired, with him reaching the end of his second term. We've received 3 qualifying applications: Tybo Binky, Lori Sandman, and John Zimble. This is a ballot vote.
Thank you.
So Magna,
Sorry.
I give it to you?
Yeah, you can give it to me.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have everybody's?
No.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner Reed, Lori Sandman. Commissioner Henry, Tybo Binky. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right.
Mhm.
Commissioner Cantu, John Zimble. Mayor Henry, Tybo Binky. Commissioner May, John Zimble. Commissioner Delgado, Lori Sandman.
Tiebreaker.
Oh, Lord, we're gonna have it.
Yes, no, there you go, tiebreaker.
And Ruth Traeger, Tybo Binky.
Tybo
Okay.
Binky it is.
So Tybo Binky is it. Has majority vote. May we have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
All right, we'll take a motion from Commissioner Traeger and second from, who was that? Commissioner May. Now, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Moving on to 10G, it's City Manager's Office Planning Board appointments. This is a resolution. A resolution appointing 4 members to the Planning Board for a term expiring December 31st, 2024, and providing an effective date. Ms. Betty Goodman to report.
This agenda item is to appoint 4 members to the Planning Board for Zone 2, 4, 6, and at large. The membership terms of Tony Servance, Jeff Hurt, Kathy Washington, and Tony Barr, who have expired, and they would like to be reappointed. We have 1 additional application from Michael McLean. Commissioner Delgado.
Appoint Tony Servants, Zone 2.
Commissioner Cantu.
I want to appoint Michael McLean, Zone 4.
Commissioner Reed. Mayor Henry.
I would like to appoint Pastor Tony Barr, who
Okay. In summary, we have nominated Tony Servance, Michael McLean, Kathy Washington, and Tony Barr. May we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
we have a motion from Commissioner Reed and a second from Commissioner Henry. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, moving on to item 10H, it's City Manager's Office Citizens Police Review Board Appointments, Resolution. A resolution appointing 7 members and 1 advisor to the Citizens Police Review Board for 3-year staggered terms and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Okay, this agenda item is to appoint 7 members and 1 advisor to the Citizen Police Review Board. In the September 23rd meeting, the commission voted that each commissioner and the mayor would nominate one member, and the mayor would nominate the advisor. So it would be very helpful if, when you say who you're nominating, if you could tell us what list it's on and what number, since we have so many people. Okay, Commissioner Traeger?
Ted Duran, expert.
List
You
one,
say
number 10.
Did you say Doreen? Okay, number 10. All right.
That's what I was
Right.
gonna appoint to.
I'm sorry?
That's what I was gonna appoint to.
Okay. Commissioner Delgado.
I was gonna appoint the same person, so give me a second.
Okay, you want us to come back to you?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner May?
I'll give you my reasoning. I was trying to pick people from my zone, but if you looked at the list, I had very few people from my zone. So I would like to have 2 weeks to look outside my zone, but my intent was to pick somebody from Zone 3, not just the entire city. That was my intent. So could I have 2 weeks? Is that possible?
Well, then, I don't want to rush people to,
I want to make sure that I'm making the best decision possible here. And it's a very important decision considering I only have one vote. My little vote has value to me. So I want to make sure that and I'd like to know, Arby and I contacted the attorney. It's not just from our zone.
no, it's not.
No.
Yeah, and so I would have hoped that I would have more applicants from Zone 3, but I in fact did not have that. And I would have liked to see that more so.
So, Mayor, how are we going to handle that? Just to your point later? Is that?
Well, what we would do is, I don't want to do it that way because I think we should all appoint on the same evening. So you just continue it until the next meeting.
Okay.
And we don't need to do it where one person is coming back and appointing later.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when do we want to do it by motion?
You would generally do a motion to continue.
Okay.
Continue for 2 weeks, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second motion from Commissioner May, second from Commissioner Reed.
Yep.
To continue to the next meeting,
The February 17th.
February 17th meeting. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, thank you.
Could I ask a follow-up question with regard to that? No?
No, what was you?
No
I
problem.
didn't say no.
Oh.
No, not at all.
No, yes, go ahead.
Yes, but.
So it's a
Go-
yes,
go
all
ahead,
right.
yes.
So given that I didn't get enough applicants out of Zone 3, does that mean that we can open it up for more people to apply at this point?
No.
No, I still have to only choose from what's there.
From all of the names.
All of the names there. Because if you open it up, we have to open it up to everyone, and there are a lot of good applicants from the other.
Okay,
And,
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
and I would be remiss if I did not mention that one of the very best candidates on the list, who was certainly one of my choices, top choices, Mr. Jake Ross, has passed away. And he, for those of you who don't know Mr. Ross, he was a Army veteran, 1963 to 65, and he was a former police officer. He was a investigator for the state attorney's office. He started a school for private investigation work, which he has done for the last, 20 years or so in his own business. And he wrote 2 books that were highly acclaimed and in the area of law enforcement and private investigation work. He's just was a great leader in our community and will be sorely missed. So he's the type of quality, though he speaks to the quality of the overall pool of applicants that we have. And so.
And if I might add, Commissioner May, I too had a short number, but that was my candidate.
Yeah.
If we lost him on
He was in
Sunday.
Zone 3, yeah. He
He
had a
was
business.
mine.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. Okay, we're moving on to the city manager hiring process. And I would like to have staff to pass you all out some information, and I'll start this off.
Thank you.
With a discussion, and then we will discuss what I've
Thank you very much.
been in consultation with from staff, and this is sort of the direction that I would like to see us move in, but that'll be a decision that we will all have to make. And I'll give some rationale for this. I realize that, you know, at our previous council meeting, we discussed a city manager, and we discussed some apprehension as it related to the overall quality of the candidates that we had or have. And I wasn't at that time completely satisfied because I wanted a deeper bench. It wasn't that I didn't think we had some good candidates, and I do now feel that we have a good pool of candidates. And so I say this, that this is the overview that the city manager's office and I have come away with of a way that we could go forward. February 3rd, this is tonight, it's my advice to us as a commission to be prepared to narrow the field of candidates that they have given us for the next meeting, from the current list that they've given us from 10 to, I would say, between 4 and 6. Preference is not to go over 5. City Commission would discuss the candidates and narrow the field at the February 17th meeting in a discussion. So we would go home and review these applications that we have, that our consultant has given us, and come back and discuss and try to narrow it down again to a list of 5. March 6th, recommendation is to have a community meet and greet scheduled for the Midtown Cultural and Education Center. Times to be determined based upon the number of candidates selected. This would be on a Saturday, and what we would do is we would have the candidates come in, and they would say set up in one room, and then we would move the residents in a sort of a round robin motion, enable them to meet with each candidate. So if a candidate had 20, 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever we deem as a good time, they would be able to present themselves to the public. Conceivably, the public would be able to write down a few questions. Someone from staff would then illustrate the questions to the candidate, and it would enable the candidate to answer some questions from the public, therefore giving the public an opportunity to see the candidate interview, present, project, give their vision of how they would lead the city as manager, and then it would give the public an opportunity to ask them questions. And we would move each group, say we had 6 groups of residents of 15 or 20. We would move them from one candidate to the next, and they would be able to be exposed to each and every candidate. Following that, which would be on March 13th, we would come back and the commission would conduct one-on-one interviews. But in the meantime, we would be able to hear from residents from the 6th to the 13th, gives them a chance to review the application, their application, and see them in person. Then they could give us feedback as it relates to how they value the candidates, what their opinions are of the candidate. Gives us plenty of time to hear from the community. Then on the 13th, we would come back as a commission and conduct one-on-one interviews with each candidate at various offices here at City Hall in the same way that we interviewed Mr. Jagger and other applicants for the city attorney's job. And then we would interview isolated, solo. If you had 5 applicants, 2 of us would be sitting out until we interviewed all 5 applicants. We would then come back at some time on the same day, March 13th again is a Saturday, with a special commission meeting later that day or evening to conduct a public interview with each candidate. complete the final deliberations to make a selection of a new city manager. Following that selection, I would then appoint a member of the commission to work with the consultant to negotiate a contract with the selected candidate. That person would be able to hear from all of us. We could either, in a meeting, we could give them our insights or our thoughts as to how the contract should be given. Or as in my case, I plan to write mine out in detail, and then I would share that with the city manager. It could be public record, but I would then pass it on to whoever the person is that I would appoint to work with the consultant to come back with a contract. Now, and then the objective is, and this may or may not happen by April 7th, could be a little later than April 7th, because sometimes the contract might take a little longer. We don't want to rush ourselves. But if it goes perfect, April 7th, the city commission would approve the contract for the new city manager. The anticipated start date would be June 1st, 2021. Now, here's my rationale, in part. One, Slavin has gone through the process. They've given us names, and we have applicants, at least, for me, at least 5 of which I believe could do the job and do a good job of being our city manager. Now, if we interview these 5 people, and the community interviews them, and they say, I don't like any of them, and then if we interview them and we say, I don't like any of them either, then we could go back and revisit and start over. But I don't see the need to do that when you have good applicants, and that one diamond might just be in the pool. If you pull back, these very same people may see us as a place that doesn't quite have our ducks in a row and decide not to put their name in the pool. But it at least gives us an opportunity to go through the motion. We've paid the consultant, and they've done an adequate job with what they had to work with. And we have to remember, this is when people put their application in, they're taking a risk with their current employer of being exposed.
Let me just say a word.
Yep. Okay, yes, I'll let the manager say a word about that.
Just so you'll know, someone coming in is interviewing to be your manager. He's interviewing you as well as you interviewing him or her or whoever it is. So that's an impression, and it will influence whether or not they decide to take the job. Not everybody will accept a position if they don't feel like the elected officials are the kind of people they can work with, or if they feel an undertone of some kind, then it will impact that selection. I would also say that you have a number of candidates that are publicly, the public knows who they are. They're on our webpage. The consultants made them available. I would ask you to not make a lot of specific comments about anybody, because that could affect them in their own job at the current place, and it would affect whether or not they even come. So just be very careful or mindful of those kinds of things, and that's the only advice I could give you.
Okay, that's good advice.
Okay, I think this whole process has been flawed. The whole process has been flawed. We are supposed to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars here. Okay, now, the hiring of the new city manager. I was sworn in the office on November 2020. On March 4, 2020, there's a resignation letter from Mr. Chisholm. It states he will be leaving in March. There's no exact date on here. Second, on November 18th, 2020, I had a telephone conversation with Slavin, the consulting firm, at 12 p.m. for about 15 minutes, what I would like to see out of a city manager. I was told my colleagues had the same phone call. That's the only time I've talked to him, the consultant group. On December 2nd, 2020, I received a recruitment profile draft from Slavin Management. That deadline was supposed to be November 11th, 2020. December 15th, 2020, I received an email that the position was officially announced on December 8th from Human Resource. That deadline was supposed to be November 16, 2020. December 18th, I received an email from Slavin. The recruitment phase of the Daytona Beach City Manager is now underway. They received 16 resumes. That deadline for the receipt of the resumes should have been done by December 16th, 2020. December 29th, 2020, one of my colleagues sent an email out asking for the status of the city manager's job description. And maybe could we have it put on the next agenda? Time is running out. The response didn't even answer her question. On January 4th, 2021, an email from Slavin. We are not finished yet. We still need more time. Highly qualified people to apply. Received 36 resumes. That deadline was supposed to be December 16, 2020. On January 5th, 2021, the city manager recruitment folder was created. January 6, 2021, 12 resumes was put in that folder with one who withdrew. A list of all the other names who applied, but no resumes. That should have been done on December 28, 2020. According to his contract, I have it right here. January 19, 2021, I asked Drew, who was filling in for Mr. Chisholm at a standard meeting, for a hard copy of the remaining resumes to look at. I received those in my mailbox on January 20th. The last commission meeting, city commission meeting, during the request and follow-up, I asked where we were with the recruitment of the city manager and was not pleased with some of the resumes, which is not stated on the request and follow-up sheet, but it is televised on the city website, which I would as well like to see a suggestion box for the employees, which is stated. Okay, and one of my colleagues said, well, we're not in a hurry, would like to see the current city manager stay long during the recruitment of hiring a city manager. Doesn't want to hire an intern manager and would like to see a task force, which I agree to that. Another colleague said, we'd like to have more communication with Slavin, which I've had one 15-minute phone call. January 25th, January 27th, 2021, I called our current city manager on the phone. I said I would like to have a month, a date, and an exit plan on the agenda, this agenda, which I do not see one. January 29th, 2021, email from Slavin asking leading city manager candidates, that was last Friday, leading city manager candidates to complete an extensive supplement questionnaire. I received 8 resumes and completed questionnaires, with 3 candidates have withdrawn from the search, which that process should have been done, sent actually, December 28, 2020. It should have been received January 11th, and January 15th, the packet sent to all the commission. Okay, so now this is where we are in the hiring a new city manager. It's a total mess. In my experience of hiring a lot of people, maybe not on this level, this was not done the correct way. And in my opinion, I'm looking at these applications. I personally see maybe 3 I would look, and I've looked through them all. And first of all, this is my opinion only, but first, this consultant group should be terminated immediately. If you don't pay your taxes on time, you get a penalty. He has not met any requirement on this contract, nothing. They didn't meet any deadlines. We have 2 local companies right here in town. The second, we need a month, a date, an exit plan of the current city manager on the next agenda, and a hiring of the consultant firm. Third, we need human resource or the current city manager, someone to oversee the contract. With the Sunshine Law, we can't talk. Okay. unless we're up here in a commission meeting. And that doesn't mean to the public that the city manager is going to hire the new city manager. That's overseeing the city manager. So and Mr. Jagger, could you answer a question for me? If we would terminate the new consulting, would we have to pay all the fees?
The structure for the contract is you pay in thirds, and it's my understanding we've paid 2/3 already. It is capped at $15,000 plus about $8,000 in expenses, as I recall. So you would have a cost savings, if you will, if you terminate at this point. If that answers your question, you won't have to incur those travel expenses.
Okay, and I just feel that this whole process is flawed. We need to be good stewards. We shouldn't be just hiring like this. I mean, they haven't done anything they were supposed to do in this contract. Nothing on time. And then Port Orange, actually, they started their search in December. They're going to have their candidates, I think, in March, I was told, the first week of March. I mean, this has started March.
Well, that's, each municipality is different, and Deltona.
No, but you know what?
Part of Dayton.
They almost catching up to Daytona in their population. So yeah, each county, but this was started last year in March of 2020. Okay. Well, actually, he resigned in March. True. Yes, correct.
Gave
But-
notice in March.
Huh?
I
Gave
gave
notice.
notice.
Right, you gave your notice, excuse me. Okay, which I have right here, didn't have an exact date. Okay, but actually, on the contract, by November 11th, the recruitment profile draft should be completed and provided. Nothing was done. I just gave you exact figures. I mean, everything, the deadlines. I looked at every email, I save everything. I mean, I just can't hire someone with a consulting firm like this. I mean,
Does that
that's
mean-
my opinion.
Does that mean the results they generated are not worth considering? If you don't
I
like
mean,
how they
and
got
I
there?
looked at every one of them, and maybe 3 of them, and I'm still concerned about some of the top 10 that's up here now.
We only need one.
So you
I mean, I've had
propose to-
one phone
you propose to start-
conversation, and actually, just to say something else, on Friday, Slavin is aware of the Shares Commissioner's concerns about this recruitment and plans on coming in the near future to Daytona Beach and get a hold of staff to meet with my colleagues. Well, he probably heard that on the press, and now he's coming, next Monday and next Tuesday?
So what you're proposing is just start over completely and
Yeah, I mean, I believe we need a consulting firm that's gonna do the job. I mean, I do not want to sit there with hiring a consulting firm that can't even meet one deadline, and then the application, everything's a mess. I mean, we've had 15 minutes of a conversation.
If I might interject.
Yes, ma'am.
You are entitled to your opinion, Commissioner Cantu. However, I don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And what they've already done, and these people having already been exposed by their cities as potential candidates for us, I think it would be absolutely ridiculous for us to throw this totally out. There are some good candidates within this group. We only need one. So if she's only seeing 3, then maybe from those 3, when we get to those 3, if one of those 3 is some of her 3, then maybe they'll get picked. But I think it's our fault at some point that we did not stand as a group and take charge. The mayor is doing that now. We didn't want the city manager engaged, and he didn't want to be engaged because he didn't want someone to say he picked them. We didn't want Mr. Sexton involved because we didn't want HR to be in charge of it. We should have taken control of this, which the mayor is now doing. And now that the mayor is doing that, I think we're going to move forward. We have a schedule in front of us on how we're going to proceed, and I think we should proceed accordingly. I spoke with Mr. Slavin today myself because I was concerned about a name that I didn't see in this group. But I think it's our responsibility to hold them accountable. To look back and say that the blame is totally on them, that nothing hasn't been done, we've got to take the responsibility for what we did not do in holding them accountable. And I think we needed to move forward with the schedule that the mayor has presented to us this evening, and let's go ahead and take care of our business. Now, that's my opinion. Now, you all can state yours.
Well, I'm with you on that, Paul, Commissioner Reed. I think that I mean, I share your concerns too, but I'm with Commissioner Reed in that I don't think that we should throw out, you know, the baby with the bathwater, as she said. I think, you know, if at the end of this, we find no suitable candidates and we're back to square one in some sense, then we can assess the cost benefit of switching, because there would be ramp up time. I mean, if we hired an entirely new group, we would lose time. They couldn't get up to speed. And maybe if we if we have a talk with Slavin about the situation and light a fire under it, maybe that will change things going forward. But I can't imagine we could bring in a new company and not lose considerable time. So I'm with them. I'm with Commissioner Reed. I think we should look at the people that are being presented to us, see if we can find a wonderful candidate or you know, in that group. And if not, then we can have a discussion about if we have to start all over again, do we do it with a new management consultant, or do we send Slavin back out with better, you know, more criteria, or do we do something different? Because I think the city manager makes a good point. I mean, it's a two-edged sword. They're evaluating us too, and probably evaluating the process by which we put them through. And there may be good people in the wings who are waiting to see how we handle ourselves before putting their name out. Because as we've said before, if they out themselves as candidates, they risk something in their home cities. Now, I don't have the manager's experience with that to know, you know, what it's like in that industry, but I can't imagine it's a decision that's undertaken lightly to put in your name as a candidate for another municipality's city manager, right, Mr. That's not lightly done. So I would want to make sure that we send a message to all the people who would be considering it, that we would be, you know, that we'll be a good fit for them if they're a good fit for us. I don't want to discourage people with handling this roughly, you know. So I think, you know, I think we can salvage the situation. I think we can talk to Slavin and let him know our concerns and go forward and salvage where we are. That's my thought. So
And speaking of being good stewards, I'm sorry for interrupting you. We've already spent money with Slavin. Hold Slavin accountable. You know, we've already paid money, so now we're going to turn around and hire somebody else and pay some more money. We need to take care of the money that we've already spent on behalf of the city and move forward and deal with this. If this isn't what we want, then we can start over then.
And then we have to pay again.
Yes, but we've paid him already.
Right, but we don't have to finish paying them.
No, we don't, but we're going to.
Okay. Commissioner? Okay. Commissioner Traeger?
I'm also listening.
What is that? I mean, we're contractually obligated, right, we agreed to a fixed amount for the contract, right?
You did. There's always the argument of breach and, you know, damages related to that. But, you know, the reality is you've already paid 2/3 of your contract price.
And my intent personally is to pay them the remaining amount,
Sure, I wouldn't
period.
propose
No
litigation
question is asked to cut someone off. I feel as though these are extraordinary times. They have not worked that far outside of the contract. Whether you just meet a deadline on a single day or a week, I'm not overwhelmed by that.
And sometimes
I'm personally just not overwhelmed by it. And the second thing is, much of it was having to meet with us and get on our time span in terms of getting the information in place. And whether we spoke to him 15 minutes or an hour, I happened to speak to him well over an hour. But if I had that much to say, then I said what I had to say, and they heard it. So, and if I had more to say, then I think maybe, like I said, write it down, send it to him. Commissioner?
When I spoke to him, it was over the holidays, probably one of the most difficult times to, you know, to get a hold of people. So, and I think the other thing too is sometimes if you've made a mistake or you're aware that your customer is not happy, I mean, sometimes that's what galvanizes you into doing a better job. You're aware that, hey, my reputation is on the line. It's not so much about the money, it's about, you know, your reputation and your competency and all that. If someone questions that, but you can work through it, I think sometimes you can get better results out of the process. But again, too, it's also about the criteria we gave him. You know, and I know I wasn't tremendously helpful in the criteria because I was all over the place with a whole host of different things that I wanted, and I've never been through this before too, so I can't say I gave him razor bullet points of, razor sharp points to consider. So I think we definitely should have a discussion with him about what our concerns are, and you make great points with your concerns. But yeah, I wouldn't propose that we retreat from paying out the balance of our contract. I think the savings we would have there are illusory. If we actually made any savings, I don't know that we wouldn't get sued or something, but I think that sends a bad message to people who would do business with us in the future. This was an extraordinary period of time too. I mean, it's not like this was the average fiscal period. So I'm in line 100% with Commissioner Reed on her proposal.
Also, I want to say that I have a few people on the list that I'm curiously interested in that I want to move forward with. And I also, when I had my conversation with Mr. Slavin, I talked to him for about an hour and a half. And gave him a very thorough list of what I would like to see in the new city manager. And so I know that that can be hard to get all of those criterias of 7 different people or what 7 different people would like to see. And getting people to even to apply, that takes an amount of time. And I'm okay with the current city manager staying. He does a good job for me. And not only that, I want to thank him. I appreciate him staying because he doesn't have to stay. And we don't have to turn the city over to a new city manager or interim city manager and in the middle of a pandemic and cause even more chaos. I don't see that as being responsible. In fact, I see that as being very irresponsible, especially when we have the current administration that's willing to stick in there with us until we get absolutely the right person that we want to see. I don't have a problem with the timeline being off some, because my biggest goal and my end result is just that I want to see the very best person with the job. And I'm going to hang in here with Mr. Chisholm and hope he'll hang in here with us for a little bit longer. And I want to tell him thank you for hanging in here with us a little bit longer, because he could have gone home in March, and he didn't. And I don't see anything that he has done that we have to rush him out of the door and push him out of here and say, give us your exit strategy right now and get the hecky on out of here. I don't want to do that. First of all, I wouldn't want to be treated that way. After I've served the community for so many years, I don't want to be treated that way. And I'm not going to treat anybody else that way. Because my mama said, treat people like you want to be treated. That's what my mama told me, and my daddy did too. So, I'm going to take that advice. And I'm going to stick with Mr. Chisholm, and I hope he'll stick with us. And I'm going to stick with Slavin and reiterate some of what my expectations are. And I'm going to continue to go through these candidates and take this home and go through it some more. And hopefully, I think we can come up with somebody that we all can agree on, or the majority of us can agree on. And that's where I am.
Okay, so I was the commissioner who Commissioner Cantu was referring to, sent the email saying, why are we not getting some more input in a timely fashion? I think I sent that in December, January, because I was concerned about diligence. I was concerned about it, right? When they spoke with me for an hour and a half, maybe hour and 45 minutes. I was extremely clear on what I was looking for, the comparisons I was making, what I wanted them to do as they move forward in the position, et cetera, what I wanted to see. So it was a very long and lengthy conversation. I will say that I appreciate Mr. Chisholm staying, and he doesn't actually have to stay. We have a lot of projects right now that require some sort of follow-through, and that's my concern of just putting in somebody new right away. I'm hoping he'll kind of do a little bit of a transition. I would like to see them be a little bit more timely in what they're doing. But I think that my personal concern is I want more applicants. For every single thing that we do, I want to have the broadest applicant pool possibly, the widest population. And I'm just wondering, are they still collecting applicants? They will continue to collect applicants until what date does that happen? Do we know that at all?
We don't know that, but when I spoke to him today, I asked him about a name that I had submitted, and they made contact with that person today, and he said that it was still open.
Okay. So I guess moving forward, my request would be if they could, I know this might seem like a lot, if we could get a weekly, just send me a weekly email. Send me something, just telling me where we are, where you are, and how things are moving for them. That's kind of what I wanted when I sent that email. Just give me a little bit of a summary of where we are and what is the next move.
You know, that's, that,
Oh, I want to, wait, one more thing. I'm sorry, one more thing. Part of I tried to think about why we did not choose a local person. And so I'm going to tell you my thoughts on that. I think that we may have believed, and the community may have believed, that there would be some sort of undue influence exerted on a local group if we used a local HR person. The downside of that is that they're not local. The upside is they're out of state and they don't know anybody here. The downside is they don't know anybody, right? So that can work for you or that can work against you. You know, I think I may have enjoyed a local person because they could have maybe arranged more community meetings for us and been a little bit more involved and known the community, but that could also work against us. Maybe that's what we were trying to avoid at the same time. So I think that may have been a resident concern. So that's just a thought.
And I would like to say one more thing. I'm not trying to rush the city manager out, but I ran on transparency, and and that's why I was voted in. When the city manager gave saying he was going to leave in March, okay? And that's coming up, okay? You got everybody around here, the public, thinking, oh, okay, that was a ploy for the elections and everything. That's why we need an exact date of when he's leaving. The public, we owe that to the public.
are you asking for an exact date for when the manager leaves?
Yes.
Then all we have to do, we've asked him to stay, so all we have to do is modify the timeline, like
that's
maybe
fine.
say for him
I
until
would
July
like
1.
for him to stay while we do this, but we need a date and exit plan
Well,
because that's what the public is asking.
July 1.
I'd
like to see him stay till July 1.
I put down, it's June 1 down here, but if we go to July 1, that's fine.
But that's
Even if
just for
they're- Are you
transitioning.
okay with the transitioning between the person?
That's, I
Then we'll
mean,
go July 1. I'm fine with that, to have a casual handoff.
transparency, they are
But that,
asking, the
but,
public is.
but that is transparency.
Yes.
No one has it, no one's hiding anything.
I didn't say no one was hiding, but the public wants to know. They elected us, we work for them.
They want to know the date that he's leaving.
They want to know a date.
Well, I don't
That's what
think
I'm
that,
trying
I
to
don't
say.
think that we should give a date that we are stuck to until we have a manager. Because we are in a pandemic, and I believe in having continuity.
Continuity.
And I like the stability of knowing what I have as the manager of the city at this time. It's big, it's difficult enough moving, we're gonna have a new manager in the middle of the transition, in the middle of the pandemic. So that in and of itself is not gonna be some cakewalk, just walking in the park. So, you know, I feel that this is
So-
transparent enough.
Are we saying that we might not be able to meet this deadline too?
Yes.
That's pretty much what we're saying to the public again.
Well, we might not.
No,
meet-
you were just saying that.
Are you asking a question?
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead.
we might not meet the deadline because we might not like the applicants. Okay? But there's no reason to settle for anything less when we have stability and we know what we have in this community. There's no, what are we gonna just, then all of a sudden just pick one? No, I'm not asking us just to pick one if we don't like them. But I'm okay with what I have to maintain stability at a difficult time.
And like I said, I'm fine with it too, but I just want a date.
Well, I think
They deserve a
I don't
date.
think you can give a date except in reference to completing the replacement of the manager.
I have never seen anything like this because when I have an employee leaving or a manager, they tell me, this is the day, this is my last day, I'm leaving. I know I have to do my work and I have to hire someone.
Can I ask you-
I believe Port Orange, they said, hey, I'm leaving. Well, I believe they hired an intern, but most businesses, when you run and someone says, I'm gonna be leaving this date, you work and get it done.
Yeah,
You-
but
But can I
Port
ask
Orange
you
had
what kind of businesses, what kind of people are you hiring? Because
Yeah,
when-
it doesn't take a rocket scientist to hire someone.
Yeah, but
And
It-
I worked for.
No, I want to know what kind of
It's on
people
our
are you
thing.
hiring? Are you hiring a city manager?
Because
Or are
government
you
is
hiring,
No, that's
because
what-
that's a big difference. It's a big difference if you're hiring a city manager or if
Okay.
you're hiring a waitress.
Okay, now, if
You can
you
go and
go-
get 1,752 waitresses right now. But we're looking for the one perfect city manager.
Okay, we're not, there's a lot of municipalities around here that they've been given a date of when the city manager is leaving, and then they hire someone by the date. But Daytona Beach, for some reason, can't do it.
It's a lot of municipalities that
Okay.
do things a lot different, because it's a lot of municipalities that leave us to deal with the homeless situation as well. But you know what?
And that wouldn't be,
But you know what? It's a lot of
That's not another
municipalities that
city.
put a lot of things right here on the city of Daytona Beach, and they don't contribute and they don't help. So, you know, we do things differently, each municipality. So whatever Port Orange is doing, good for Port Orange. But I am looking for the absolute perfect person to walk through this door and take the position as the city manager. That's what the people really want. More than an exit date, they want to know that we've got the best person.
I think there's a difference between a date and a plan. I think the date to me is irrelevant. The concept that we have a plan is important, because if I have someone who has a ton of institutional knowledge who comes to me and is retiring, I would be the one saying, no, wait, can I get more time so I can have transition? There's people in my industry I could not replace easily, and I would want them to stay on to train their replacement to do things. So to me, it's entirely different. What I would agree with, and what we do need to tell people, is that we have a replacement plan, a succession plan in place. The date to me is less relevant, because until we fill the position, it would be short-sighted of us just to usher someone out and say, oh, no, we said, Jan, this date, you got to go. We need someone who can oversee the transition. So and this to me is a transition plan. So we have a plan in place. The dates to me are less important, because the dates are going to change. We're going to hit things we don't foresee. We may find nobody that we like. And the other thing is, if we don't have a lot of good candidates, maybe that's a reflection on us as not only a city as a candidate, but on the instructions and the people that we're looking for. Either there just may not be a lot of people that meet our criteria, or we may not be phrasing it in a way to attract the best candidates. So I think that that's part of what we have to look at too, is what can we do to make this a desirable place to work? And I think some of the dialogue we're having now would be something that would resonate with potential applicants when they decide how they're going to come and if they're going to apply. So I think we need to just be mindful that how we conduct ourselves now is going to also influence who is applying to our jobs.
Well said, very well said. Temperament matters in elected life. It matters. And it's mattered on this dais for the last 8 years, and it's my expectation that that will continue to be the standard. Anyone else? Okay. We have a plan that I hope that you all, I think, sounds as though 3 people have already said that they support it and they would support this. I understand, your sentiments. And I don't want you to feel as though I don't respect them. I do respect them, but I need you to also understand that we're at Daytona Beach, and I'm proud of that. I don't aspire to be Port Orange. They happen to be in a different situation where they don't have stability. Their manager had to leave. It wasn't as though, they wouldn't have wanted him to stay around and help them with the transition, but I value stability. And if there's a feeling that we're not transparent about something, I'd like to know what it is, because I don't see anything that lacks transparency on our part, and certainly not on my part. I want people to know whatever it is they need to know. Anything else from anyone else? Commissioner Traeger, you have not weighed in. Do you have any thoughts or anything?
Well, I think it's very, very gracious of Jim Chisholm to offer to stay on until we get a suitable replacement. I'm very much grateful to that, because like he said, we're in the middle of a booming thing, and we do need a steady hand. I think we ought to go on. I don't think we ought to be rushed. I think we need to get somebody good who will stay with us for 10, 12, 14 plus
16.
years. Because I think somebody who is interested in our city and our residents, not just somebody who wants a job, but somebody who wants to be part of our community. So I'd rather take the time and get the good person.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Mr. Chisholm, how long, I mean, is there an industry standard or something? Is there an idea, how long, if you had it your way, would you think an orderly transition of power would take? You had the right city, we came to you and said, we got the right guy or person, don't mean to be sexist. How long do you think it would take for you to oversee a transition where you think we would be happy and you would be comfortable?
Probably 30 days at the, from the point that he starts to work, probably 30 days at that point.
So as
He
far
or
as,
she,
right,
sorry, let me say, probably 30 days. I don't intend to stay any long period of time, but I would be available to help, whenever possible. Mainly because I put a heck of a lot of time into this city, and I am proud of what we all have been able to do together. And I want to make sure that transition is smooth also. But I don't want to stay too long because I don't want my ideas and my thoughts to be their ideas. I want their ideas and their initiative to be carrying us to that next level. And that's, it's kind of the philosophy that I've worked on for my whole life.
so as far as, could we say that the concrete exit plan is that about 30 days from when we start your replacement? I mean, is
Yes.
that's a concrete,
That's concrete.
transparent exit plan, right?
Yes, might be less than that, but.
Yeah. We'll get you at least 30. Okay, I mean, to me, I think that's about as concrete and definite, Mr. Mayor, as we're gonna get. And it is a relationship like that says, from the time we hire a new person, how long would we keep the current city manager? I mean, I think that is as transparent as we can be with the uncertainties we face finding a replacement. But to me, that's satisfactory to me as far as a policy statement.
Yeah,
I mean, do you
I agree. I agree 100%.
Okay, I am not trying to rush anyone. I just want it done the proper way. I don't think, a year was rushing. I'm sorry, it just needs to be done the proper way, and we're not doing that.
What is not proper about him saying 30 days after we get a new?
No, I mean,
Oh, the deadlines
I'm
that were
done.
met.
But I don't think a year is rushing things. It's been a year. I'm sorry. And I'm not trying to push Mr. Chisholm out or anything. I just know it doesn't look good. To the public. We work for them.
We
It's
know
not
that.
the other way around.
Well, we know who we work for, but I haven't had people just calling me up and just
I
telling me
have.
that I wasn't transparent, but I'm sure, Okay. Yes, ma'am.
As it relates to the, you mentioned a Zoom, or you mentioned a moving from room to room, people meeting with residents. Or that is still the 15 residents that we choose, or how are those?
No,
Those are just
no, it would
residents.
be, it would be open, so but we'd be physically, socially distanced because we'd have space. And so if you had, one of the reasons, let me address that. Initially, I did think that it would be okay to have a group of, say, that each one of us selected one person to be on, and they sort of kind of interviewed and then gave us their opinion. But at the end of the day, the manager works for us, and we work for the residents. And so I thought it would be better to have a situation where the most amount of people could be exposed to the potential manager, and then they would be able to give us their feedback, as opposed to choosing 6 or 7 stalwarts in the community to do that. And so what this would be is if we had 4 candidates, and it's at the Midtown Center, we would put each one in a different room or a room, and then we'd have, say, 15 residents in each group. We'll go around, and they would present, talk about themselves, answer a few questions, go to the next candidate. And so if you had 10 candidates of 15, they'd have to do that for 10 groups.
And so we're moving away from the idea that we originally had of each of us submitting somebody, correct? We've moved away from that position as of right now.
As of right now.
As of right now, okay.
Now, that's a suggestion. If you guys want to go back to the other, I believe that this is better from the perspective of more people. I've got a lot of common people who are interested in who the manager is. It's not just the Chamber of Commerce. It's not just people who are wonks, City Hall wonks. It's folks that I don't normally see any place out and about, but they pay attention to what's going on in their city, and they want to be able to see the potential manager, and then give us feedback on what they've seen.
Okay, so because I think my process is changing. So we had originally said they would meet with residents, yes, and then they would meet with a group of people that we thought through. Somebody would develop a list for us, a short list. So that short list is actually who's coming to these meetings, correct? And then
No, we will come back and have the short list based on these applications, because this is the list that Slavin has given us.
Okay.
And maybe one or two others might be added in there. We'll come back on the 17th and narrow this down to 4 or 5 candidates. And then those 4 or 5 people will be brought in for the purpose of the community, meeting with the community, and then ultimately coming in to meet with us.
Okay.
Okay? Is this something that we need to take a vote on, or is this, it's?
No, these are all just agenda matters, which is within the manager's authority.
I have a housekeeping type question. How do people present themselves for the opportunity? Because I have residents who would like to be involved in this process. So how do people present themselves for the opportunity of being part of it? They just show up at Midtown? Just show up?
Show up at Midtown.
Okay.
It's a public meeting. We'll
It's a
announce.
public meeting, and they'll show up.
And
Not a
we'll be
public meeting, but it's a-
advertising it accordingly to
yeah.
let people know. Super. All
I would
right.
think we'd advertise it as a public
Yeah.
meeting. That way the
Yeah.
commissioners
Yeah.
could attend and watch as well.
Yeah, because I plan to, I want to be there.
And are we still going to have a suggestion box here for the employees?
We have one.
We do have it?
We put it
Okay.
out, so it's in HR right now. And notice going out, Jim? Okay. We're gonna send a notice out to every employee so they know where it is, and if they got several ways they can make suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Anonymously?
Yes, anonymously.
Good.
Okay. All right, so we'll go with this plan as presented, and we'll come back in 2 weeks and vet these candidates and any other that Slavin may send to us that would meet their criteria between now and then. Okay?
Yes, thank you,
All right.
Mr. Mayor, for
Thank you.
taking the lead on this.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you for concurring.
And that was the last,
Clarify one thing before we adjourn tonight. Not about that.
Oh, something else. Okay.
and that was our last agenda item.
All right, okay, and who do we start with tonight?
Reed.
Commissioner Reed, for concluding comments?
No, sir, I have nothing.
Okay. Commissioner Traeger?
I just want to say kudos to Chief Jakari Young for his forward thinking with the drugs and the guns, getting the bad ones off the street. Thank you.
Good night, Daytona Beach.
All right.
A couple of things. First thing is, how are we going to alert the businesses and people in the various CRAs that we have funds available? Do we generally have a strategy, or is it something that they have to just research on their own?
Yeah, we post it and we make it available to the CRA boards. And, but I don't know if we've advertised that in the past or not. I don't see, we haven't. We could advertise these, just so it's in the paper. So it's
Okay.
transparent in the sense that we do have money and here are the purposes and here's the.
And so that has been the biggest, I'm not sure if you've heard the same thing. The idea is out there that we don't tell people the funds exist. They don't know how to access it. They don't know what number to call, and there's no money. And so I like the fact that we're saying, no, that's not in fact the case. I appreciate that. But anything that we can do within all of those CRA areas to let residents and business people know that it is actually available. And this might actually incentivize some people to consider opening a business. Just a thought.
Okay.
The other thing is, I really am enjoying our update. So we know that I really believe in mental health. And to that end, I visited Beach House. It's part of a Stuart Marchman program, and I think that Chief Young knows about it. I think they have a great program. It's a short-term respite for families. Children can go there, and it's free. And that blew my mind. But it gives a good structure to young people under the age of 18 who need some help, and the families need some help. Then they're actually in the system until they're 18 years old. They get continued services and continued care and outside support. So I think it's fantastic. On our update, which is very important to our community, there's something called free mental health services. And this is through a group called Empower. And it's on the back of our little pamphlet. It talks about outpatient mental health, substance abuse assessment counseling, psychiatric clinics, medication management, case management, and medication assistance. So I recommend that anybody who needs help, and even though I'm in the field, I still advocate, that's part of our mandate, to advocate for mental health services. I recommend that you seek them out. It'll be very helpful during this time. Not only that, so I'd like to know, how are we feeling about the idea that a few months ago, almost a year ago, somebody came to us and asked that we change Sunnyland to the Linda McGee Center? What happened to that? Did we discuss it further? Did it kind of drop off? Where did we leave it? I'm just curious. Does anybody know?
I spoke with the young lady tonight, and she's working on her paperwork, the rest of the paperwork for the packet. So she hopes to have it to us by the 22nd.
Okay, it's funny, it crossed my mind. I was like, I wonder whatever happened to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then also, I would very much like to know if possibly we could have Captain Lee come up for a moment. And I really enjoy working with Captain Lee. We're working on a project right now. One project, I'm not sure if you have this in your areas, we are seeing a lot of tagging taking place on the Ridgewood corridor and also on beach side of it. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, we are seeing some graffiti that's popping up throughout the city.
All right, and so right now what I'm asking is that if residents see it, what do you think residents could do if they notice it or see it? No. No. What could residents do to help us a little bit?
Well, if they're seeing it in progress, we really need them to call in, because the law enforcement, we can't be everywhere at once, but if you see something, we need you to report it so we can respond to it and address it. Our units have already been briefed on it. We've mapped some of this and looked at some of it, and we're trying to get our folks out there and find these people. So if they see them in progress, please report it immediately. And if they see areas that are tagged and it's after the fact, that just needs to be reported through our code portal. If they go through the website, the city website, go to code enforcement. On the left-hand side, it says report a violation. They can report a violation there, and they can just give us the address, just say that it's graffiti, and we'll go out and we'll address it with the property owner, and try to work our best to try to get it abated as quick as possible.
And so to that end, I had a resident suggest a graffiti paint over task force. And so do we need volunteers for that? I'm a terrible painter, I'll tell you now, but I would be willing
Kids
to
you catch do that.
to throw my hand. Say again, sir?
Why don't you make the kids you catch tagging paint over the?
Yeah, that's actually what we did last year. We had made an arrest in reference to one of the taggers, and we made it as part of their condition for community service, and they painted a lot of the walls throughout the city. His community service ended during COVID, and we don't have that person anymore. So if we catch this new person, that will be part of what we'll be asking for during our communication with the state attorney's office. But in the meantime, if there are people that want to volunteer, we do try to coordinate with the businesses. They'll often supply the paint, if somebody can supply the work. So we're happy to have volunteers that want to help it. We've already communicated with Public Works about the poles along Atlantic and Ridgewood, and they're doing an assessment to try to see which ones need to be covered up and get those rectified.
And so if people needed to volunteer, they would just go ahead and contact you at code enforcement.
They can call they can call 671-5304 and just let me know they want to volunteer and we'll
Okay,
set
so
something
I'll
up.
be a volunteer. I'm terrible, but I'm going to help out. Okay, and then the next thing was, could you give us a fabulous update at the DDA meeting? And we were discussing the downtown area and crime. And there is, again, I'm going to speak to what the mayor spoke about earlier and what I've been discussing all evening. There is oftentimes a misperception of information. And so I'm giving just straight facts. These are number facts. This is not my reality. It is what the numbers are saying at this particular time. So people from Ormond Beach, Port Orange, New Smyrna Beach, they like to tell me how crime-ridden Daytona Beach is, and especially the downtown core. We seem to be laden with homeless and drug needles everywhere. Could you please tell us what is going on with crime in the downtown corridor?
Well, I do not have those numbers. I did send them forwarded to you guys at your request.
It was
But-
1%.
Right, I was going to say I can tell you that calls for service citywide compared to calls for service in the Beach Street area only accounts for about 1% of the calls for service. There was only a total of 19 Part 1 crimes in that area for the whole year of 2020. And they were, what you would normally see in a business district. There was most of them were property crimes related to thefts and a few scattered burglaries or car breaks. That is a very small number in comparison to the rest of the city and other areas in the city.
What I came away with was that the idea, and people continue to say this to me over and over, downtown, it's terrible. And I'm saying, when was the last time you were down here? And that, in fact, is not true. So the next time, possibly, and I had actually asked late if we could put that crime stat for the downtown area in the bulletin, and maybe we can do that next time. But they were pretty darn impressive. And now tell us, where is your new headquarters?
So Neighborhood Services now works out of 125 South Palmetto, which is right down in the Beach Street area, and it's only a block and a half away from here. We're right down there in that area. We're committed to the success of the area as well, so we are down there. That's where our Beach Street units work out of, that building as well. So they're right down there in the area. They're the two officers that patrol. There's 7-day-a-week coverage down in that area, and that's on top of the normal zone coverages that all zones have.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate your
problem.
time, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Appreciate
And that is all for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cantu,
I have nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Henry.
I just want to say that I've been up here for quite a few years now and with various commissioners, and I have really enjoyed my work up here with commissioners. And there is never a day that I go home and feel like anyone up here is doing something nefarious or is being disingenuous in their works with this city. And a lot of municipalities and people who get up and they're commissioners, they can't say that. But I really feel in my heart when I leave this place that I don't, even if we disagree, I don't ever feel like anyone is up here doing something disingenuous for the citizens, towards the citizens or the community of Daytona Beach. And I think words matter. So sometimes, we can say things and it plants this idea to the rest of the community that the people who serve you are being disingenuous. And that isn't the case that I know of or that I see. Nobody's giving me any money for taking any bribes. If they were, I'd be driving a newer car and probably a much, much bigger home. So, and I believe that probably to be the case with the rest of the people that are up here on this commission. And therefore, I just want to say that we've seen all over the country how words have mattered and played into politics. And I don't believe that a rich Jewish guy shining a laser down on the country and starting forest fires. I don't believe any of that kind of stuff. But somebody said that, and now, leaders have said that, and people believe it because it has come from the mouths of the leaders, or those that they have chosen to represent them. And just because the United States is divided does not mean that Daytona Beach has to be divided. We don't. We can disagree. We can have a different way of doing things and still see the best in the people that we serve with. That's my comments for tonight.
Thank you. I have no comments, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I have one piece of business that occurred at the last meeting. We approved the plan for private and public property for the Bike Week. And one of the elements that the chamber had proposed was parking in one lane of Main Street and driving bikes on the other lane. And when our police department and fire and EMS folks looked at it, they felt it posed a hazard for us in a safety way. So we sat down and we modified that to have Main Street would have a two-way traffic open to motorcycles traffic only for the entire 10 days of Bike Week. Truck deliveries, food, beverage, and other deliveries would be made before 9 a.m. In the morning, sections of Main Street will allow motorcycle parking. There will be areas that are going to be placed with barriers so they can't park on the sidewalk in some areas. We're going to allow adequate and available parking space in the Main Street area, the Ocean Center, back at the Peabody, and the various parking lots around the Main Street area. So they'll be directed to those areas for parking. Bars, lounges, occupancy limits are restricted to a maximum of 60%. Business owners are required to post maximum limits and have staff personnel at the entrances to monitor the levels. Code enforcement, Daytona Beach Police Department and the fire department personnel will be responsible for tracking population estimates in the various locations. I would like for you to take an action to approve these changes made to the master plan tonight, so we can include it in the record of what we're allowed to enforce.
Could I ask a question, please, since you brought it up? With regard to how they're going to the performance standards, how do we know that it's 60%? They're posting a number? Are they clicking it?
They'll be posting a number and keeping track of it.
Okay, and I'm sure, have we checked with the police code force that is a good way to go about doing it? They're comfortable with that? Just, I'm curious.
Everybody was involved in the meeting, fire, police, everyone, merchants from Main Street, chamber. We all sat together, worked this through. So you had interchange with all the parties and agreed on the terms that are there. So the memo that you have is a summary of that meeting with the folks that I just mentioned. And in addition, the Ocean Center, unlike years past, has volunteered to make all their parking available and actually open their exhibition hall for car parking. So it's something we have not had in the past in terms of having all the vehicles off of Main Street, and cooperation from the Ocean Center, which has really come from the Peabody Ocean Center relationship, and Tim Riddle, who's their new manager there. So we've got a different approach, and like I said, police, fire, and everyone was involved in this, in a discussion and a conclusion that Mr. Chisholm just read.
Okay, so I'm understanding it differently. So we're saying there's actually much more parking than there was previously. People can actually spread out. 'Cause it sounds as though it's still kind of congested there.
Numerically, I think that you're right, and in respect to the numbers being set, the numbers will be set, and we picked the number of entities that we did as far as count and cooperation with the merchants to help them comply. So it's not an automatic shutdown, but they would work to stay within those numbers that were identified by the commission as an important target to be met. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is that it? All right.
Mayor, if I could suggest a motion then, because we're altering the plan that was approved at the last meeting, it'd be appropriate at this time for a motion to amend the Bike Week master plan as it relates to the public property to include the traffic plan that Mr. Chisholm has just expressed. It's actually contained in the memo dated February 2nd to the commission from Mr. Morris. So if we could adopt that as part of your motion. And I would also suggest you add an allowance for the city manager to revise the plan in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens if necessary.
Okay.
Very good. I'll prepare the resolution, assuming we have an affirmative vote. We will need public comment, of course.
Okay. John Nicholson, 313 North Grandview.
413.
Huh?
413.
413, I'm sorry. 413.
Thank you, Bob. I was waiting for that. I don't necessarily understand what you're talking about in terms of location. It pops in and out on the motorcycles on Main Street. Yes, no, or maybe. There wasn't a request to have it one way. Apparently, it's going to be two ways,
It's going to be two-way.
but they're not allowed to park on the sidewalk like they did in the past.
We're going to keep the sidewalks open, but there is parking in some areas for motorcycles.
Okay, when you say some areas, it means,
Some areas of Main Street. And then there'll be parking for motorcycles like they have been in the past in the private areas behind Peabody, and additional parking at the Ocean Center and the Ocean Center lots.
okay, we worked very hard with Patty Evans and Helen on parking for the Peabody, which includes Grandview, which includes several other locations. Will they also be available?
We're going to do all this.
All the offside Main Street will go as normal.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just ask later where those sections on Main Street. So 90% is bikes are gone, or 10% of the bikes are gone? Because that's the big thing is the bicycles on Main Street.
We're going to keep the sidewalks open is our main objective.
Well,
And there is parking for bikes that is designed on the street for that purpose.
Okay, because there is never parking that blocks the sidewalk. So,
No, and they're not going to now.
well, so that's why I don't understand why you're even suggesting that there's no parking on the sidewalks. You know, except if we keep it in the gray.
At all the times. There's actually curbs and so on that serve most of the time as sidewalks, but if you wanted to back a motorcycle up to that, you could park there, and that's what the reference is. Some of those areas will be blocked off, and the chamber will be publishing maps and diagrams so people will know ahead of time where those areas are. I think when you get there, it will not look greatly different than what you've seen in the past in terms of configuration, but the crowds will be able to be dispersed. And the intention in not having parking in some areas is to create more open space for people to move.
Oh, so basically what you're doing is the car parking is where the motorcycles will be, not on any other location. Those 17 parking spaces are what you're going to allow.
That's essentially right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you for that. This meeting is adjourned. We will take public comments at this time.
Okay.
What?
We're going to open up our public comment forum.
Really?
Our first speaker tonight is Arlene Henry, and on deck is Francis Chu. Is there an Arlene Henry in the audience?
All right.
Okay. Our next speaker is Francis Chu.
Francis Chu, 351 North Seneca Street. I'd like to see Midtown open again. I'm a member of I was a member of the Oasis program. I also do line dancing. I've been going to the Y and Holly Hill. Our line dancing instructor does do the line dancing in Holly Hill. We've been really good about separating ourselves. They have X's on the floor up in Holly Hill, and we do exercise there too. But I really would like to see Midtown open. I used to use the computer room there. I use the computer now at the library, and they have it set up so that it's safe to use. They have covers on keyboards, and I always wipe it down anyway when I go in.
Thank you, Ms. Chu.
That's
And we hear you. We
Okay.
really do.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is Dennis D'Abato. Oops. I know he's. Oh, okay. Sorry, Denise.
Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. Several things relatively quickly. For Juanita, along your line, I've been going to the library for 2 years now. There was an incident. There has been no homeless people outside the library for the last 8 months. That used to be a problem. Inside the library, there has never been more than 4 or 5 at the time. So the library is extremely safe, and they have 2 guards. Secondly, with graffiti, the city should be also part of that. So when there's graffiti, and I've been trying for the last 6, 8 months, all the trash cans on Boardwalk, Main Street, A1A are all filled with graffiti. I'd like to have those taken care of, all right? The city should take care of its own graffiti. Third, I want to thank you for the feel for Norma Bland. I met her several years ago at the first Citizens Academy, and we worked together since. Secondly, I'd like Linda McGee, but I don't like the idea of naming the entire center Sunnyland. The building should be the Linda McGee Center at Sunnyland. Term limits, I have several people that are talking about term limits. There's been several here tonight that have term limited out, but we don't have term limits for like commissioners, 15 years. We've had one guy on one of the boards, 27 years. There was a guy that passed away, he was 32 years. Having people 20 and 30 years on a board is an extremely long time. So I think we should have a discussion on term limits, not only for our boards, but for our commissioners and our mayor. CRA funds, no, we don't know, and the boards never discuss funds. They're always told you don't need to know about the funds. So they don't know about this $100,000. They're never told. So I'm asking you to think about that because it's really important. When are we going to have Main Street redone? Beach Street is being redone. MMB is being redone. Main Street is not even being considered. It's the oldest, so it really needs a little update. Contract, Jim, you and I have been fighting forever. And someone told me, oh, I thought you and Jim were the best of friends. I'm like, really? Giving the devil his due, I have no problem with the idea that you're staying whatever until we get the right person. But thank you for staying.
Okay, our next speaker is Denise D'Abato, and please forgive me. And on deck is Kelvin Maynor.
Hi, I'm Denise D'Abato, the Secretary Treasurer for the Beachside Neighborhood Watch. We are a nonprofit 501c3. I'm sure you are all familiar with our local initiative dedicated to improving life for residents of the Beachside community. As you may know, for many years, on each Friday and Saturday of the city's biannual motorcycle rallies, the Beachside Neighborhood Watch has staffed a volunteer barbecue supplying food and drink for law enforcement, municipal workers, and traffic control personnel. As a thank you for their long hours and dedicated service during these events. I am here today on behalf of the Beachside Neighborhood Watch to thank Mayor Henry for your recent donation to our fund, and I would like to request that the city commissioners contribute all or a portion of their Bike Week funds toward our annual barbecue.
Oh.
We appreciate your consideration of a donation to our efforts. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your good work in that cause.
I actually made a donation to that yesterday. I guess my donations didn't make it to the agenda, my Bike Week funds. They'll make it on the next one.
We have the mayor scheduled for the next one as well, too.
Yeah. Yes, sir, Mr. Maynard.
Good evening. Invest in the human soul. Who knows, there may be a diamond in the rough. My name is Kelvin Main. I'm a local business owner. Having heard your lively discussion in regards to the new city manager, I come tonight to take you back 30 years. 30 years ago, I left this community as a recent college graduate of Bethune-Cookman. I moved to a city called Winter Haven, Florida, over in Polk County. And I was asked to speak to a group of young middle school and teenage boys in a lock-in. And among those young men was a young man by the name of Derek Fiecher. He was well-spoken, well-traveled, very polished. I was a young person, but I could see that in that young man. Now, fast forward 30 years. I lived in that community for 12 years, having watched the young man grow. He ended up attending Bethune-Cookman University. He has served, he has put his name out there. And as some of you have already suggested, he's one of the candidates. And you run a risk when you put your name out for such a position and when you're already serving in that capacity. And I'm glad that calmer heads prevailed tonight to understand that you can't blame the candidates for the situation that has evolved among yourselves. And I ask of you to give strong consideration to one Mr. Derek Fiecher. And I know that you can't publicly speak on the candidates, but having lived in that community, and those of you who are familiar with Polk County, to understand that a young black man could serve in Imperial Polk County in two municipalities. It says a lot about that young man to serve in that capacity over in Haines City and Winter Haven. So I come in strong support that you give the highest consideration as one of your candidates to Mr. Derek Fiecher, to move to this community, one that he matriculated through here as a student. He's willing to come back here and offer some different views. And I, as a business owner in this community, would love to see that level of progress for Daytona Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard.
Our next speaker is Steve Miller, and on deck is Matthew Reinhardt.
Oh, another Polk County person. He's from Polk County.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, City Manager, and my Commissioner, Ms. May, and congratulations, Ms. Cantu. I'm convinced the city's in great hands. I just wanted to come up to just say something that you already commented on, Mr. Mayor, so I don't have to speak long. I was coming to ask you about the Senior Citizens Program. A lot of people have contacted us, and they want to get back into some type of activities, even though they can spread out. I figure probably by May, probably June, we probably can get them back in safe because a lot of those are 65 and over, and most of them are getting their vaccine now. So if you guys can, take into consideration, we got a lot of seniors who have been placed in their homes. They haven't had any type of social activities, and it would be great for them to come together, have a little lunch and dinner, and meet some of their old friends again. Thank you very much. And again, I got the chance to listen to the debate tonight. This is what commission is all about. You guys are doing a great job, so keep up the good work, and thank you very much for your service to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, former commissioner. And I thought being from Polk County, you would be talking about the same topic that the other gentleman did, but thank you. All right.
Some things you don't have to say.
All right.
Our next speaker is Matthew Reinhardt, and on deck is Marjorie Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Matthew Reinhardt. I live at 317 North Paul Revere in the Georgetown subdivision. As you may have remembered, I've been here before. With regards to the traffic situation, my thanks to you, Ms. Cantu, for sending that information on to Mr. Holmes. They have since moved those speed limit signs to Georgetown. My only concern with that is, as I was walking my dogs, it's registering me walking at 10 miles an hour. And my fear is, I know that that collects data in order to ascertain whether or not there needs to be more of a police presence. My fear is that that 10 miles an hour every time somebody walks down that way is going to bring down or reduce the average. The whole reason we had the signs moved to that location was because of the speeding. The other issue is still the stop sign issue. I wouldn't have brought that up. We have since changed our walking pattern. My wife and I like to walk, well, before this, at night. We have since changed that to walk later, even at 10 o'clock at night, where we were almost hit by a car coming right through the stop sign. Something has to be done before somebody's hurt. There are children that live on those areas. I know I brought it up to the commission before. My concern is I'd rather have something proactively done now before somebody gets killed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Marjorie Johnson, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Greetings, Marjorie Johnson, 122 South Keach Street. I pay attention to what's going on here at City Hall, and you do work for the residents of this city. So I'm happy that the residents will be involved in the meeting of the candidates who will want to serve as our next city manager of the city of Daytona Beach. At the last city commission meeting, the meeting was adjourned before you called Mr. Will Biddulph to come in and speak. I don't think you should close these meetings down. You should keep them open after you've spoken, since you put us to the end. And he came in and spoke after you had to open the meeting back up, Mayor Henry. I know that was a mistake on your behalf, and you apologize for it, so just make sure it doesn't happen again. Also, I would just like to say that congratulations to our next deputy chief, Ms. Jennifer Whittet. She's the first female to hold the position of deputy chief, so I'm very proud of this promotion. And I feel that she deserved this. She's worked really hard. I read the article in the paper this morning, and I was proud of that. Also, I would like to say one other thing, that I'm getting a lot of reports in Zone 6 that we have no accessibility to our commissioner. There's some concerns that are not being addressed, and the residents want to meet with their commission to address these concerns. That's not happening. So I'd like to say to you, we need to move forth and get us a new city manager, and I'll be very happy when that happens. And also, we need to listen to all of the commissioners and their input, and just not put somebody down because they are addressing, that's what the people elected them to do. So they're doing their job. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Ann Ruby, and on deck is Doyle Lewis.
Hi, Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. Mayor Henry, a few months back, you asked for some educational programming on the toilet to tap program, and I'm just wondering where that is. I mean, in my ideal world, it would have tours of the water plant so that people could be educated about that, and there would be a traveling presentation that could be brought around to different neighborhood groups, put into schools. And I don't know where, COVID obviously changes how some of that happens, but you asked for an educational program on what happened with Beach Street and the infrastructure. I think that it would be good to follow up on that toilet to tap water program, and I know that's not the official name, but that's the catchy name, and that's the one you want to kind of counteract. So hopefully you can get some updates on that. Commissioner Henry, you had talked about wanting to find a perfect city manager, and I know I don't have to tell you this really. It's like perfection is the enemy of good, and I don't think we can afford to search for perfection, but we can hope to get as close to a very good as we can get, and I would urge you all to please consider, when it comes time to write the contract and approve the contract, make it a term-limited contract, a contract that you have to approve to renew, rather than let it be open-ended and only terminate with cause for termination. So I think that would be something that could alleviate some of the stress of having to find perfection. And the only other, and I like your plan, Mayor Henry, I like your plan on having citizens come through and meet the different manager candidates on the short list. I think that's great. But the only thing is, both those weekends are Saturdays during Bike Week. And so I would hope that the time frame on the March 6th event would be long enough that would allow for people to travel to and from and all the issues that can come up with Bike Week. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
And our final speaker tonight is Doyle Lewis.
Good evening, Doyle Lewis, Daytona Beach, United States. I'm here to speak on a couple of items, but the main one is actually transportation for a homeless shelter. We've talked about this in several commission meetings over the homeless shelter that has been built on 92, First Step Shelter. There has been lots of issues with the transportation with early morning hours and late night hours. With the transportation going in and out of the shelter, especially for people that are homeless, that are taking the bus in the early morning hours. Also, whenever somebody drops somebody off. I suggest that we put a program into place that educates the clientele there about how to get to the bus stations, because I've almost been hit, I would say at least 20 times, going back and forth to work on a bicycle or just trying to cross the street. Even before the building was built, I went out to check out the location, and at that miles an hour speed limit sign of 65, it was very, very, very hard to cross that street, and the vehicles do give you absolutely no leadway. They think they're right because you're on their road. But if you just put a program into place to educate how to get to one. I was personally involved with a person who was on like almost crutches, where when the bicycle ride was out there, the buses actually wasn't allowed to go around by the jail on Indian Lake Road and Red John Road. They were not going to that bus stop across the street from there. And they were sitting over there trying to catch the bus when there was no buses, because there was no way to know there was no buses to stop there. So they had to cross the road 2 or 3 times to actually find a way to catch the bus, which made this gentleman late for his doctor's appointments and things. So if you would just put a program into place a little bit better about how to catch the bus for transportation in the early morning hours, when the van is not working, because you do have a van that works a certain amount of hours during the weekdays, that would be a lot more helpful, because there was a terrible accident with someone with a new job. So that's all I came here for really tonight. And that is a very important thing, because this young lady lost her life.
Your time's up, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is that the last speaker?
That was our last speaker, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Good night, Daytona Beach.